Chapter 21. Another Mystery. The first thing that struck Dr. Jim the next day was an alteration in the demeanor of his friend. When Herrick arrived at the Pines after his visit to Corn, the squire had already retired to bed, and was asleep, so the servants said. Not wishing to disturb him, Jim had supper all to himself, and went to his own room after a brisk walk on the terrace. It struck him as curious that Stephen did not come down to breakfast the next morning, as he was now comparatively well. On asking for the squire, he was informed that Marsh Carr had gone out for a walk. Herrick therefore had another lonely meal, wondering the while what had taken Stephen out so early. The young man did not return till late in the afternoon, and then excused himself by stating that he had been to see Petronella at Beorminster. "She is still in that dull house," said Marsh Carr gloomily, "although I think she is tired of it, and wants to go to her own country. But she refuses to go all the same." "What is her reason?" asked Herrick sharply. "I can't get it out of her. She says my mother left a message with her." "For you, I suppose. Well, why doesn't she deliver it and get away?" "The message is for you, Herrick." Jim stared. "For me?" he cried. "Why, what possible message can your poor mother have left for me?" "I really do not know," replied Stephen indifferently. "You had better see Petronella and ask her. She is looking very ill, and if she stays much longer in that damp house she will die." "All right," replied Herrick coolly. "I'll look her up some time. I dare say the message is only one asking me to look after you." So Dr. Jim said, but in his heart he was wondering if the dead woman had left behind her any confession of her crime. She might have done so, yet if she had poisoned herself to escape the consequences, it would have been foolish of her to incriminate herself. Herrick resolved to see Petronella at the first opportunity, and learn what it was that she had to tell him. If there were any really important message, it was strange that the old Italian had not delivered it long ago. He had seen her frequently, and there had been ample opportunity for her to fulfil her mistress's dying wish. However, Herrick put this out of his mind for the moment, and turned his attention to Stephen. "You are not looking well, Steve," he said gravely. "Your face is white. You have dark rings round your eyes, and a haggard look, as though you had not slept all night." "I am not yet quite myself," said Marsh Carr, in a far more irritable tone than Herrick had ever heard him use before. "I can see that, and being someone else has not improved your temper. I hope I have not offended you by going to town, Steve." "Certainly not. How can you think so?" "Well," said Dr. Jim, looking at him, "it struck me that you have been trying to avoid me lately. If you were tired of me, Steve, you need only say so, and I'll pack up and go." "No, I'm hanged if you will," said the squire vigorously. "I can't do without you. I have been worried a trifle, and it has told on my present state of health. I'll be all right in a day or so." "Is there anything I can help you with?" "No, it is a private matter, and concerns myself only." In the face of this intimation, Herrick could not press his inquiries, and began to speak on other subjects, Stephen replying more or less absently. As soon as he could, he withdrew to his own room, saying he wanted to lie down. Herrick did not seek to detain him, but shook his head. "Something is wrong, and he won't tell me what it is," he thought. "I wonder if Santiago has been tampering with him in any way. Perhaps Bess may know the reasons for this change. I'll see her at once." But the extraordinary thing was that he found Bess changed also. He had left her bright and merry, anxious to probe the secret of Colonel Carr's death. He returned to find her nervous, ill at ease, and disinclined to continue her detective investigations. "I don't think we shall arrive at anything," she said when Herrick pressed her. "I spoke to Inspector Bridge and he can do nothing. He's a professional, and if he fails, how can we hope to succeed?" "Inspector Bridge is a conceited ass," replied Dr. Jim gravely. "He knows absolutely nothing. I know more than he does." "Did you see the Mexican and Mr. Joyce?" asked Bess. "I saw them, and I spoke to them. And I have found out something which I need not tell you just now. It would be useless to do so. I must search out the matter for myself, and when I succeed you shall know." Bess sighed. "I do not mind in the least," she said mournfully. "I have ceased to take an interest in the matter. If Frisco did not kill Colonel Carr, I do not know who did." "You are changeable, like all women," said Dr. Jim, rather puzzled by her attitude, yet never guessing its cause. "By the way, did you find out anything about that pistol?" Yes. Bess thought she might as well tell him, as he would certainly learn the truth sooner or later from Bridge. "The bullet fits the barrel." "I thought so," said Jim. "It is the weapon which was used." "Yes," answered Bess. Then after a pause, "I made another discovery." "Oh, you did? And about what, my dear?" "The bullet which was used. It is of silver." "Of silver? What do you mean? Isn't it lead?" Bess laughed rather irritably. "If it was of lead, how could it be silver?" she asked, and then went on to tell how the jeweller had examined the missile. "Isn't it curious?" she said. Herrick nodded absently. His eyes were fixed on the ground, and he was trying to think of the reason Mrs. Marsh could have had for using so expensive a bullet. Certainly the weapon was old fashioned, and she would have to manufacture the bullets for herself. But why use silver in preference to lead or pewter? In an ordinary household the supply of the last two metals was likely to be more plentiful than the first. This was a problem, but one of so trifling a nature that Herrick dismissed it almost immediately. He turned his attention to Bess. "What have you and Stephen been doing with yourselves?" he asked. Bess started violently and changed colour at once. "Nothing, Jim," she said stiffly. "Why do you ask?" "Well, you both look ill. Stephen is avoiding me, and you are as silent as an owl." "Not so stupid, I hope," said Bess with a laugh. At this moment Ida entered the room, and nothing more was said. But Ida also complained of Stephen's health. "I wish you would make him stay in bed, Dr. Jim," she said. "I am certain that he has got up too soon, and is not strong enough to go about. Look how pale he is, and silent. I can't get a word out of him." Herrick nodded. "I am not pleased myself, Ida. This comes of my running away to town. I'll exert my authority." He spoke to Stephen, and urged him to lie up for a few days. The young man obeyed meekly enough, and this very meekness made Herrick uneasy. He would rather that Stephen had shown fight, but the Squire remained in bed, took what was given him, and hardly ever opened his mouth. Ida was in despair. Herrick was puzzled, and the two met to discuss the situation. "When did he change like this?" asked Dr. Jim. "I think it was the day after you left," replied Ida tearfully. "I went to Beorminster to see Flo, and left him quite bright. When I met him again he was dull and quiet and white. Yet Bess was with him while I was away, so he should not have missed me so much." "Oh," said Jim with sudden interest, "so Bess was with him, was she? It strikes me that Bess herself is not so bright as she might be." "Indeed you are right there," said Miss Endicotte. "She is sad and silent just like Stephen, or else she is so gay that I think she is too excited. She cries for the least thing, and laughs without any cause." "Sounds like hysteria to me. Yet Bess is not given that way." "Of course not," said Ida, repelling the suggestion hastily. "She is a strong, healthy, sensible girl, and above such weakness. But, as you say, she and Stephen have both changed, I think." Here Ida hesitated and looked down. It amazed Herrick when she looked up to see her eyes were filled with tears. He could not understand it at all. "My dear girl, what is the matter?" he exclaimed irritably. "Are you ill also? The devil has broken loose here since my departure." I can't help it," sobbed Ida. "I thought that Bess and Stephen might like one another." "Of course they do, Ida. Why shouldn't they?" "You don't understand what I mean. I wonder if they were in love with one another and regret their engagements." Herrick burst into such a hearty fit of laughter that she was cheered. "I never heard such nonsense in my life," he said. "Where is your woman's wit, Ida? Why, Bess loves me devotedly, I am certain. As for Stephen, he adores the very ground you walk on. No, it is not that, my dear girl." "Then what can it be?" asked Ida, drying her tears. "I shall question Bess until I find out," said Herrick grimly. "You have no idea how I can torture people with cross examination." True to his idea, Dr. Jim sought out Bess. He came across her in the pine wood beside the fairy circle. Her eyes were cast on the ground, and she looked despondent. When she saw Herrick, she made as if to go away. Dr. Jim felt wounded. "Bess, don't you want to see me?" "Of course I do," she said brightly, "only I'm not very well." "Neither is Stephen," said Dr. Jim, and he saw by her start that the remark made her nervous. "Have you two quarrelled?" "No, we have not. We are great friends." "Are you in love with one another then?" Bess grew crimson and stamped. "How dare you say such a thing as that even in jest?" she said. "What would Ida say if she heard it?" "It was Ida's own idea," replied Herrick with a smile. "Seeing you two so glum, she fancied that you regretted your engagements and wanted to marry one another. Just say if this is the case, Bess, and Ida and I will console each other. That would be only fair, you know." The first smile that Herrick had seen on her face since his return dimpled the cheek of Bess. "I never heard such nonsense. I like Stephen, but you are the man I love." "You stupid Jim, you know that." "I'm not quite sure if I do," said Jim gravely. "In love there should be complete confidence." "Surely there is between us," said Bess nervously. "You can't look me in the face and repeat that." Bess made the attempt and failed. "It is nothing," she said obstinately. "There is something however," said Dr. Jim sternly. "You and Stephen have some secret between you which is making you both ill. What is it?" "I can't tell you, Jim." "Then there is a secret." "I won't be questioned like this," cried Bess with angry evasion. Herrick took the girl by the arm and forced her to look into his face. "My dear girl," he said, "I am to be your husband, and you must obey and consult me in all things. If you are playing with fire, I must know. Do you not trust me, Bess?" "Yes, but the secret is not my own." "In that case I won't press you for an explanation," he said relaxing his grip. "You are a foolish girl to have any secrets from one who loves you. But I suppose you have given your word not to tell." "Yes, I cannot break my word." Herrick nodded. "I do not ask you to. The secret of Stephen shall be respected. I do not even ask if it has to do with the murder of his uncle. There is no need to ask." Bess looked at him irresolutely, her face scarlet. Then without a word she went slowly away. Herrick looked after her and nodded to himself. "I believe she has found out something about Mrs. Marsh and has told Stephen. That would account for their melancholy and for the secret which she says exists between them. I shall ask Stephen." That same afternoon Herrick went back to the Pines and into the bedroom of Marsh Carr. The young man was lying staring at the ceiling. He seemed listless and worn out. When Jim entered, he turned his face toward the wall so as to avoid his friend's eyes. Herrick pretended to take no notice, although he was cut to the heart by the avoidance of his gaze. He was very fond of Stephen, and mourned over this thing which had come between them. However, it was necessary to take extreme measures if the situation was to be improved. "Steve," said Herrick, formulating a plan, "I can't eat alone any longer. You must come down to dinner tonight." "I can't," said Stephen in a muffled tone. "I'm too ill." "I know you are. Life and brightness and my society are what you need. I was wrong to send you to bed. As your doctor, I now order you to get up." Stephen turned sulky. "I don't want to." "You do not know what is good for you, my friend," said Herrick coolly. "I shall expect to find you dressed and down to dinner at 8. After a good meal you will be more like your old self." In this way, after much coaxing, scolding, ordering and threatening, Jim got the young man to get up and dress. Marsh Carr did so reluctantly enough, for he was desperately afraid of betraying the secret he had told Bess. To the sharp eyes of Herrick, however, he was really tired himself of being alone. This seclusion could not be kept up for ever, and it was as well to make a beginning and get back into the old routine. He therefore dressed with some care after a bath, and came down into the drawing room looking much better. Herrick was standing on the hearth rug, big and masterful. "Here you are at last," he said, "just in time for a glass of sherry." Stephen protested, but Herrick insisted. "You want something to make you eat after being in bed all day. This sherry and bitters will do for a medicine. I want you to eat and drink well tonight, Steve. You must get colour into your cheeks and fire into your eye. What will Ida say if I attend to you so badly?" Stephen drank the sherry and felt better. Then they went to eat a capital dinner, and Dr. Jim saw that his friend tasted every dish. He also made him drink champagne, and talked the whole time in a lively way that was infectious. By the time dinner was over, Stephen felt positively happy. Then came cigars, coffee and cognac in the library. "Now, Steve, don't you feel better?" said Herrick, when they were seated vis-à-vis beside a blazing fire. "Yes," replied the Squire, and looking round the gorgeously coloured room, at the evidence of wealth and luxury spread out on every hand, "I feel immensely better. I suppose I shall pick up soon." "If you follow the advice I shall leave you with, I think you will," said Herrick with intention, and stared at the fire. "What do you mean, Jim? You don't intend to?" "Ah, but I do though, Steve. I cannot stay with any one who does not trust me wholly. I want to be your friend. Your stepmother asked me to look after you. I promised to do what I could, but unless you give me your unreserved confidence, it is useless for me to remain." Stephen rose agitated, and began to pace the room. "I trust you in every way, Jim. You know I do." "I know nothing of the sort, Steve. You trust Bess, though." "Ah, she has told you," cried Marsh Carr angrily. "No, she has told me nothing. But I am not a fool, Steve, and I have eyes in my head. I saw that she was as sad as you, and by putting two and two together, I became certain that there was something between you to make both sad. Bess would not tell me anything, nor did I ask her. She is a loyal little woman. Still, from her manner, I guessed there was a secret. I am certain," added Herrick, looking steadily at his friend, "that such a secret can only have to do with the death of your uncle. Now, as I am looking after this case, you must tell me what you know. If you do not, I shall throw up the matter and leave you. I must be trusted all in all, or not at all, my friend." While Herrick was speaking, Stephen had sat down. He changed from red to white, from white to red again, and his breathing became short and hard. He saw that Herrick was in earnest, and that he would either have to tell or lose his friend. In a tumult of anxiety he rose again and began to pace the room. "You put me to a hard test," he cried. "Perhaps I do," replied Dr. Jim calmly, "but it is to prove your friendship and your manhood. Tell me the truth." "You will despise me if I do," said Marsh Carr thoughtlessly, and regretted the words almost as soon as they had left his mouth. Herrick appeared unmoved, although he was inwardly surprised. "I do not think anything you could say or do would make me despise you," he said in his calmest tone. "I know you too well to think you would do anything dishonourable. Come, what is it?" But Stephen still remained silent, his eyes on the ground. He was debating whether he would go on or not. Herrick saw his hesitation and guessed its cause. "You have got over the worst now," he said soothingly. "Come along, Steve. Sit down and tell me." "No," replied Stephen hoarsely. "I prefer to stand up." Then suddenly, "It was I who fired those 3 shots into the body of my uncle." "Was it?" said Herrick quietly. "And why did you do that?" "Because I was mad at the time." "Had you not better tell me the whole affair? Then I shall be in a position to judge of your madness." Stephen was amazed at the calm way in which his friend took the intelligence. However, he had gone so far that there was nothing left to do but to confess all as he had confessed to Beth. In a hurried manner the young man repeated the tale and informed Herrick how Bess had found out the truth by means of the revolver. "And now you must despise me," was his final remark. He sunk into his chair with a groan. Herrick paused for a moment to think. Then he carefully lighted his pipe. "I do not despise you by any manner of means," he said calmly, "but I must admit that I think you are quixotic." The word to Stephen's mind was so inapplicable to the situation that he looked up astonished, scarcely believing his ears. "Quixotic?" he repeated. "I do not quite see." "Well," said Herrick nodding, "you see Mrs. Marsh is dead, so no harm can be done to her. It is good of you to screen her memory." "Stop, stop, what do you mean Herrick?" cried the Squire much agitated. "I mean that you have taken this guilt on your head to screen your stepmother's memory." Stephen paused, then he looked up resolutely. "Yes," he said, "I may tell you, if I tell no one else. It was my mother who fired those shots. Bess found out about my pistol, which my mother used, so I took the blame on myself." "You chivalrous ass," said Herrick with a growl, "and you've been fretting over this? Why didn't you save time by telling me before?" I thought. "Never mind what you thought. After you came to seek your mother at the rectory, you did not find her. What did you do?" Stephen stared. "How do you know that I did not find her there?" he asked. "I know more than you think. Tell me all that you saw." "I saw nothing," replied Stephen. "Corn said that my mother had gone to the Carr Arms. I could not find her there. I fancied in one of her rages she might have gone up to the Pines. I went there but saw nothing. Then I came back to the Carr Arms and found my mother. She said I had missed her. I thought she spoke the truth. I never questioned her, even after I heard of Carr's death. It never entered my head that she had killed the man." "Then how did you guess?" "It came into my head like a flash when Bess said that my revolver was empty in 3 chambers. I was certain that when I put it away the whole 6 were loaded. Even as Bess spoke it entered my mind that my mother must have taken the revolver and have gone up after she left the rectory a second time, to threaten the Colonel. She must have found him dead, and then have fired the 3 shots into his body. Then she replaced the revolver. I never thought of looking at it. It was brought here along with some other things, and it was only when Bess—" "I see," nodded Dr. Jim. "Now look here, Steve. Had your mother another pistol, an old fashioned horse pistol?" "No, I am sure she had not. At least I never saw her with one. It was with such a pistol that Carr was shot. Good heavens, Herrick, you do not mean to say that my mother killed the man?" "Well, I have heard your account, and I have heard the account of Corn. I don't know how to reconcile the two." "Corn? Corn the rector? What has he to do with it?" "A good deal. So have Joyce and Santiago and others. See here, Steve, I have been searching for evidence in this case for a long time. To spare you I said nothing. But now that your stepmother has been brought into the matter, it is but right you should know. Sit down. I will tell you a long and interesting story." Rather dazed, Stephen did as he was told. Then Dr. Jim related all that he had learned, bringing the narrative down to the end of his interview with the Reverend Pentland Corn. "Now, what do you think?" he asked, when the whole story was told. "I do not know what to think. My mother, I can't believe that she would. "It does seem strange," said Herrick, "but I tell you what, it is my opinion that this message Petronella will deliver will tell the truth." Chapter 22. A Message from the Dead. The old Italian woman looked very ill. Her form was shrunken, her face thin and white, her eyes unnaturally large. Evidently the misty climate of the Midlands chilled her to the bone. She had developed a hacking cough, and shook with the ague when the east wind tormented Beorminster. Herrick was shocked at the change which had taken place in her appearance during these few short weeks. Apparently Petronella was not long for this world. But the near approach of death did not appall her. She was terribly lonely now that her mistress was gone. "Signor Dottore," she croaked, when Herrick made his appearance, "you have come to see me. That is good. But you will not cure me. No, I am dead, Signor. Dio mio, what does it matter?" she ended, with a characteristic shrug, punctuated with a cough. "Indeed you do look ill, Petronella," said Dr. Jim sympathetically. "I must ask the squire to send over some one to look after you." "No," replied the old woman obstinately. "I am well here, and it will not be long, Signor. Soon I shall be in my beautiful Italy." "At least come over to the Pines, Petronella. You will be better attended to there, and it is warmer." But Petronella crossed herself with pious horror. "Go to that devil Casa, Signor? Not me. He had the evil eye, that man who died. Si, Signor, I went one day with the Madrona, and he swore at me. I had an accident the next day. Cospetto e Jettura, that Signor. But come in, Signor Dottore. This is the best room." She led Herrick into what once had been the drawing room. "Ah, Bisciori di Chianti, Signor?" "Signor Stephen sent me some Chianti." "No, thank you, Petronella," replied Herrick, sitting down on a dusty seat. "I want to have a chat with you. We will talk in your own language if you like." "Ah no, Signor. I speak the English well, thanks be to the saints. My padrona was fond of speaking the English, so we will talk, Signor Dottore." Herrick acquiesced with a shrug. He was quite prepared to talk any language she chose, provided he got what he wanted. He was not very certain how to go about the matter. Petronella was a shy bird, and inclined to be obstinate. He felt his way in a roundabout fashion, so as to take her by surprise. "You'll be glad to get back to Italy, Petronella?" Si, to the little town by the Adriatic. There I was born, Signor, and there I will die. If I die not here, ah Dio!" "You are in pain, I fear?" Petronella shrugged her lean shoulders. "I am always in pain," she said. "My legs and body all pain. But the padrona left me something to take, thanks be to her. Povera Signora, and the pain goes." "Not chloral, I hope?" "Si, Signor, a little bottle of chloral. I take not much, only when I am bad, so bad. then the pain goes. Be careful what you do, Petronella. Remember, your mistress died from taking too much. I shall be careful, muttered the old woman. Ah, Dio mio, what does it matter if I die, all alone in this big house, and Signor Stephano away? You saw him the other day, he told me, said Dr. Jim carefully, approaching his business. He told me you had some message for me. Petronella nodded and screwed up her thin lips. Only when he is in danger, Signor, not now. He is too well. What do you mean, Petronella? Asked Herrick, puzzled by her nods. Signor Dottore, said Petronella, standing very straight, my padrona, before she died, called to me. She gave me a large letter and told me to give it to the Signor Dottore when Signor Stephano was in danger. Oh? Herrick's eyes flashed. He had always wondered how it was that Mrs. Marsh had died without making any sign. After the conversation she had had with him, he quite expected that she would have left him a farewell message. It appeared that she had done so, but that the letter had been withheld by Petronella according to instructions. When did she write this, Petronella? You said nothing about it at the time. No, I did what I was told to do, Signor. Ecco, Signor Dottore. It was in this way. After my padrona got the letter from the postman in the middle of the day, she was very angry and afraid. Afraid? Why was she afraid? Chi lo sa, shrugged Petronella. She said nothing to me, but she told me to bring pen and ink and paper. All the afternoon she was writing. How she did write. Then she put all the writing into an envelope, Signor, and wrote our name on it. She told me to give it to the Signor Dottore when Signor Stephano was in danger. She said that Signor Dottore was a good man. I give it to you, Signor, but not now. No, and Petronella, closing her mouth firmly, shook her aged head. I think you had better give it to me this very minute, Petronella, said Herrick, rising, for Signor Stephano is in very great danger indeed. As how, Signor Dottore? He may be accused of murdering his uncle, Colonel Carr. Ah, Dio mio, crowed the old woman. Did I not say that the dead man had the evil eye? Did I not tell the Signora that evil would come to the young Signor from his death? She caught Herrick's arm and fixed her glittering eyes on his face. You swear to me that this is true what you say? Signor Stephano is in danger, I swear he is, Petronella, replied Herrick earnestly, and this packet you talk of may save him. Ah, si. Well do I know, Signor Dottore, that is so. My padrona said that it told how the danger could be set aside. You understand? In this letter, Signor, there is a strange story. Do you know what it is, Petronella? No, Signor Dottore, padrona did not tell me, but she said it was a strange story, and to be read when my young Signor was in danger. I will go and bring it. La la la. It is danger, Dio mio. That wicked Signor who is dead. Birbante ladroni. The evil eye, the evil eye. Coughing as she went, the old woman hobbled out of the room. Dr. Jim sat still wondering if he was about to learn the truth at last. If Pentland Corn was to be believed, Mrs. Marsh had been at the Pines about the hour when the crime had been committed. Herrick did not now believe that she had killed the man herself, as she had been possessed of the modern revolver with which the 3 shots had been fired. It was impossible to imagine that she had fired one shot with an old-fashioned weapon, and had then reverted to the use of the new revolver. No, the first shot, the death shot, had been fired by someone else, possibly by Frisco. Mrs. Marsh had met the assassin in the house, but for reasons of her own had not divulged the name. Also, judging from her conversation, She had known a great deal about Carr and Frisco, especially about the latter, seeing that she had warned Jim that Frisco might attempt to kill Stephen. As a matter of fact, although the man had not struck the blow himself, he had guided the hand of Santiago to strike it. Herrick wondered if Mrs. Marsh would say anything about the Mexican. "At all events, I shall know the truth at last," he said. "After reading this letter, the mystery will be one no longer. But why did Mrs. Marsh delay such important information all this time?" This was a question he could not answer. He was still puzzling over it when Petronella entered the room, carrying a large blue envelope sealed with the Carr crest. This she handed to Herrick with much ceremony. "There is my trust, Señor," she croaked. "Bear witness by all the saints that I gave it only when the young Señor was in danger." "That is all right, Petronella. I shall read it here. Will you stay?" "No, Señor Dottore. I do not want to hear the secrets of my padrona. I go to make myself a meal, Señor. You stay here and read. A glass of wine, Señor Dottore? Ah, por l'amor de Dio, un bicchiere di Chianti." Herrick politely refused the attention, and Petronella went grumbling out of the room. She was a hospitable old soul, and liked the doctor. When he was alone in that dismal, deserted apartment, he drew up his chair close to the window and opened the envelope. 5 or 6 sheets of closely written paper fell out, also a typewritten letter. After a glance at this last, Dr. Jim smoothed out the paper and began to read. The story, as it might be called, commenced abruptly. This impetuosity was extremely characteristic of Mrs. Marsh. After a glance round the room, Dr. Jim settled to read. The manuscript was as follows: "I am a wicked woman and an evil woman. There, you see, Mr. Herrick, I place my character before you in the first line. I know you are no fool, or I should not make such a confession. But when you read these pages I shall be in my grave, so what you say or think does not matter. If these pages are made public, there will be blame enough from other people. To save my boy they must be made public. I can foresee that he will be accused of the murder of that beast Carr. I swear that he is innocent. He knows nothing. From the grave I send out my voice to defend him. And you are a clever man, Herrick. The defence of my poor boy I confide to you. If you do not do your best, I swear to haunt you if it be possible for the dead to return. But after all, you are too sensible to be frightened by this talk. Let me get to the facts of the case. Those will interest you more than the ravings of a dying woman. So I begin. I have said that Colonel Carr was a beast. I repeat it. He was a cruel tiger. Rolling in wealth, he refused to give me any money, yet he knew that I was accustomed to luxury and that Stephen was his nephew. No wonder I hated the man. Again and again I implored him, almost on my knees, to allow me sufficient to live on. He always refused with his sneering laugh. Often I wondered that I did not kill him. Yet he had one good point. He had loved his sister, and out of love for her memory he made Stephen his heir. He also caused him to be educated, but when that was done, he refused to allow him an income to live like a gentleman. I hated Carr for that. Even if he had not allowed me money, still his own sister's child should not have felt the pinch of poverty. I love Stephen. He is a very kind, good boy, and has put up with my vile temper all these years. Now that he is rich, I hope he will marry Ida, if she does not prefer you, and I do not think that is likely, and live the happy life of a country gentleman. My blessings on them both. To come to the point which I know you want to reach. On the night of Carr's murder, I was at the rectory. It came to my ears through some words dropped by Frisco when he was intoxicated that Carr intended to disinherit my son. Whom he intended to favor I do not know, nor do I care. But I could not stand meekly by and see the lad robbed of what was righteously his own. I went into Saxham that afternoon to see Carr, and to remonstrate against his committing the monstrous injustice he had contemplated. He saw me with the greatest coolness, and behaved quite in accordance with his character. In vain did I point out that Stephen was the sole living representative of his blood, and was entitled by law to the property. Carr said that he had another relative living, a cousin descended from an uncle of his, who had been turned out of doors by his grandfather. This uncle had married in America, and had died, leaving a daughter who married a Yankee. It was the son of this daughter to whom Carr referred as his cousin. Furthermore, he declared that his cousin had a son about the age of my Stephen. I asked him if he intended to leave the property to this cousin and his brat. But this he denied. He said that he had made the money himself, and would leave it to whomsoever he pleased. In a word, he defied me. I was helpless. I could do nothing, and that afternoon I left the Pines mad with rage, after a threat to kill Carr. Needless to say, he laughed at my threat. Why I did not kill him then, you will ask. Because I wanted to give the man one last chance. I warned him that I would shoot him if he persisted in his injustice. I said that I would return that evening for my answer. Then I went to the rectory and had dinner with Pentland Corn. Here, my dear Herrick, I may state that I had brought a pistol with me, or rather a revolver. It belonged to Stephen, who at one time had a craze for shooting. The revolver was put away in its case, which was on the mantelpiece of his study. I remembered that it was there, and on looking I found that all 6 chambers were loaded. I knew that Stephen never troubled about the weapon, so I took it with me to the Pines. But on that afternoon I did not use it. Carr, I said to myself, should have his chance. Stephen was to come to the rectory for me about 9. Some time before that I told Corn that I would go to the Carr Arms to meet Stephen, but I intended to go up to the Pines. Corn never suspected my intention. I quickly went up to the Pines shortly before 9. I found no one in the lower part of the house. Frisco, I suppose, was sleeping off his drunken fit, as I heard from Napper that he had been drinking in the afternoon and had uttered threats against his master. I knew that if anywhere, Carr would be in the tower. The table was laid out for dinner, but he was not in the dining room. I went upstairs and found him in the tower chamber. He was in evening dress, lying dead with his face downward. I turned him over and saw that he had been shot through the heart. At once I guessed that Frisco had carried out his threat and had murdered the Colonel. But I thought Carr might have altered his will before dying. I was quite mad with rage, thinking he had cheated me. Then I did what you will consider a terrible and barbarous thing. I fired 3 shots into his dead body. I suppose it was wicked of me, seeing that the man was dead, but I am Italian, as you know, and I was mad with fury at the thought of how this he had treated me. The only revenge I could take was to have my share in his death, so I fired 3 times. It did me good, and I came away much calmer. I see you raise your eyebrows in horror, my virtuous Herrick. Ah, bah! You are English, and cold-blooded as a frog. I am Italian, and I did what I did. I have no other excuse to make. I was only a few minutes in the tower chamber. Then I came down to get away, lest I should be accused of the crime. At the door below I met Frisco. He had his hat and coat on, and a small bundle in his hand. I said, "You have killed him. He lies dead upstairs." Frisco denied that he was guilty, and referred to my 3 shots. I explained, and told him that he could call up the whole countryside to hear what I had done. At the same time I warned him that as I had found the Colonel dead, I would accuse him of the murder. Frisco repeated that he had not killed him, but said he might have done so later on. Carr had treated him so badly. He was entitled to the money. He was a relative of Carr's. I saw at once that this was a cousin and said so. Frisco did not deny it. He told me he would have to go away as he might be accused of the murder, and could not afford to remain and face the matter out. But he warned me that if Stephen took the property, he would find means to get rid of Stephen. I laughed at him, but I was afraid. Frisco was almost as big a brute as his master and cousin. Then, seized with a sudden panic, he ran out of the house and into the pine wood. I left also, and got down to the Carr Arms, where afterwards Stephen came for me. I told him that I had been there all the time, but that he must have missed me. That is the truth as regards the events of that night. I found Carr dead, and in anger I fired those 3 shots. Who killed the man I do not know. I am inclined to believe it was Frisco, in spite of his protestations of innocence. But you know how he ran away. He went to London, and from London he wrote to me. I enclose his letter. The next few days, and the murder was known. I said nothing. I replaced the revolver in its case. I persuaded Stephen that I had not been to the Pines on that night, and he believed me. Then he became possessed of the property on certain conditions. I breathed freely. Carr had not had the time to make a new will, and my boy was safe. So far so good. Then came the bolt from the blue. I received the enclosed letter from Frisco, in which he threatened to write to the police and denounce me. If he does this, I am lost. It will be difficult for me to defend myself. The evidence against me, if the matter is looked into, will be too strong. But you can see that for yourself, Herrick, so I need not be more explicit. Under these circumstances, and to save Stephen, I have made up my mind to die. If the truth about my visit came to light, even although I were proved guiltless of the murder, Stephen is quite foolish enough to give up the money. He is a good boy, but weak, quixotic. The only way I can save him, and myself also for that matter, is to die. I am not afraid. I have had such a wretched life that I do not think things will be worse in the next world. Besides, the quarrel, against the abuse of which you are always warning me, affords me a chance of slipping quietly and painlessly out of a world that is much too hard for me. If I die, Stephen will be safe, for Frisco can do nothing. His threats will fall harmless on the dead. The man is dangerous, though. He might try to murder Stephen. I gave you a hint of that, Herrick, but I know you are clever, and so long as you are with my boy, I do not fear for him in that way. Yet, as regards the rest, it is possible that Frisco may denounce Stephen as guilty of murder. Stephen told me he went to the Pines that night to see if I had gone up there. Someone may have seen him. Then I used his revolver. That would also be evidence against him, and even if I had destroyed the weapon, that would still be evidence against him. While I live, I dare not tell the whole truth. Therefore, I make this confession, and I shall give it to Petronella. She will deliver it to you when danger threatens Stephen. From the contents of this you will know how to act, so as to thwart Frisco. Stephen is innocent, and I verily believe that Frisco is guilty in spite of his denial. I can die in peace now, for I know when this confession is in your hands that Stephen will be safe. I trust to your head and to your heart, Herrick. I am sure you will not fail me. No doubt you think I am going to extremes in dying. That may be, but I am sick of this life. Even if I lived, I should have nothing but trouble. Besides, my poor Stephen has had quite enough of me. I hope he will marry Ida and be happy. Were I to live and remain with them, I should spoil their happiness. What would a sour old woman do with two such lovers? Well, Herrick, I am about to seal this up, and then I shall take a dose of chloral, an overdose. Thus my death will appear to be an accident. The world will think so. I wonder if you will. You also may be deceived. But I think you will be clever enough to doubt the accident. For you know I am not the woman to be careless. Do not show this to Stephen unless you are absolutely compelled. I love the boy, and I want him to think the best of the woman who is gone. So, no more. Good-bye to you, my dear Herrick. You have been a good friend to me. Continue to be so to my boy. Also, if you have any religion, which I doubt, pray for the soul of Bianca Marsh. And here I sign my name for the last time, Bianca Marsh. When Herrick finished this extraordinary document, he laid it down with a sigh for the memory of the wrong-headed, impulsive woman who had written it. She had acted foolishly, but for the best, and since the poor soul had gone to her account, Herrick could not find it in his heart to blame her. After a pause, he took up the typewritten letter. It was typed in purple ink, without date or address, and even the signature of Frisco was in print. It ran as follows: If you do not make your son do justice to me and to my son, I will write and tell the police that you murdered Colonel Carr. I must have half the money left by Carr allowed to me by arrangement. You can answer my letter by an advertisement in the Daily Telegraph. Then I will write to you and make arrangements. All I want to know now is whether you insist upon your son giving the money, or face the disgrace of being arrested for the murder. I have a witness who can prove your presence in the house. If necessary, I will come forward and give myself up. I can save myself and condemn you. Choose. I shall look every morning in the paper. Frisco. Herrick read this precious letter over twice. He wondered that it was typed instead of written. Not that he did not see the reason for this, but that he wondered how a hunted fugitive like Frisco could procure a machine. Then the truth flashed into his mind. Robin, said Herrick, rolling up the papers. Frisco met him, went to his chambers, and disclosed the fact that he was his father. Ha! Between the two of them, they wrote this letter so as to frighten Mrs. Marsh into giving them the money through her influence over Stephen. Robin typed the letter and sent it. Little scamp! He did not tell me that. I shall go again to town and see him. Then Frisco must be produced from his hiding place. Robin can and shall do that. This is all very well, but still the mystery of Carr's death was unsolved. Mrs. Marsh was innocent. She declared Frisco to be guilty. On the face of it he was, but Herrick had his doubts. The case was getting more difficult at every fresh discovery. For the first time he mistrusted his own powers of dealing with the matter. I must consult Stephen and Bess, said Dr. Jim, and left the house. In his pocket was the confession of the late Mrs. Marsh. Chapter 23. The unexpected happens. For the next 24 hours Dr. Jim kept his counsel. He said sufficient to set Stephen's mind at rest about his mother, but did not tell the whole story or show the confession which she had obtained from Petronella. He wanted to turn matters over in his own mind before doing this. The fact is, Jim was getting a little weary of the whole affair. Every new piece of evidence that came to light seemed only to complicate it. He felt sure that the paper left by Mrs. Marsh would solve the mystery, but although it told much, it did not reveal all. She declared, in a half-hearted sort of way, that Frisco was guilty, but she gave no proofs. The man in that hurried conversation at the door had denied the charge, and beyond the fact of his flight, there was no evidence against him. It occurred to Jim that the best thing to do would be to drop the matter altogether. It seemed useless to follow such a will-o'-the-wisp. Still, I do not like to do this on my own responsibility, he thought after much consideration. It will be best for me to lay all the facts before Bess and Stephen, and go by what they say. If they want to go on with it, well and good. If not, I shall end it at once. With this idea, a most sensible one under the circumstances, Herrick called a council of war. Bess came over from Bithstead and met Stephen and Jim in the library by appointment. There Herrick again told the whole story of his dealings with the matter, and ended by placing Mrs. Marsh's letter and its enclosure before them. When the squire and Bess had read the documents and were in possession of all the facts connected with the murder of Colonel Carr, Herrick made a speech to them on that basis. "It seems to me," he said, "that it is foolish going on with this matter. For all that I can see, Frisco is the guilty man. But he has disappeared, and I do not think it is worth while hunting him down. To hang him for the murder of a scoundrel like Carr, I beg your pardon, Steve, but your late uncle was a scoundrel, will be no gratification to any of us. Moreover, if he were caught and tried, this letter might have to be produced. I think it best to stop short at this point." Before Stephen could give his opinion, Bess interrupted him to dwell, after the custom of a woman, on a minor point. "You foolish boy," she said, in reproachful tones, "I see that you took the blame of your mother's doings on yourself. That was stupid. You might have trusted me." "My dear Bess, I could not blacken her memory even to you." "Perhaps not, but I should have understood. Now that I think of it," she added, "I wonder that I was so foolish as to believe you. It was entirely opposed to your nature to fire at a dead man." Stephen winced. "Do not say anything more about it, Bess," he said. "She did that. Let the matter rest there. And now about continuing the search. I agree with Jim. It is best to do nothing more." "I am not so sure of that," replied Bess obstinately. "You see, Santiago may still try and get the money." "No," said Jim positively. "I do not think so. He has been found out. His conspiracy is at an end. He knows that any further move on his part will meet with failure. Believe me, he will return to Mexico and give up fighting. The wisest thing he can do." "What about Joyce?" asked Marsh Carr. "He is worse than useless. Take away Don Manuel and Joyce is lost. He has neither the pluck nor the intelligence to carry through a plot on his own account." "But his father Frisco may use him as an instrument. Frisco has to clear himself first. Joyce knows if he does anything with his father that I can have him arrested. Rather than that should happen, I believe he would give up Frisco to justice." Bess shuddered. "His own father!" she exclaimed. "Oh, as to that, you can hardly blame Joyce if he does not feel particularly filial. His father has done nothing for him. Besides, Joyce senior deserted his wife, and Robin was devoted to his mother. It is one of the best traits in his otherwise poor character. No, Bess, I think if Robin came to choose between his own skin and that of Frisco, his father would be the one to suffer. Robin believes in everyone for himself." "He is a wicked little wretch." "He is and he is not. Weak rather than wicked. His scheme to mix you up in the murder by means of that pistol was invented by the Mexican. Joyce only did as he was told." "But in that case," said Stephen, looking up, "I do not see what Santiago had to gain. Robin wanted Bess to marry him. He wanted to inveigle her into the case so that she might not refuse out of fear. But what would that matter to Santiago? Her marriage with Joyce would not have helped on his schemes." "True enough," said Herrick musingly, "but I dare say it was Frisco who suggested the marriage. He wanted to get the money through his son, and perhaps thought he would get more if he put off Robin with Bess." Miss Endicott reddened. "Thank you for nothing, Jim," she said indignantly. "I was evidently to be a pawn in the game." "It seems to me that we all have been pawns," said Jim grimly. "Just consider the mistakes that have been made while we have been searching for the true assassin of Colonel Carr." Bess laughed. "First of all, I was suspected," she said. "Oh, no, that was only a half-hearted attempt on the part of Frisco and his precious son. There was no real evidence to implicate you, Bess. I think, speaking for myself, that I first suspected Robin Joyce. It was your remark about his income, Stephen, that aroused my suspicions. Well, the chain runs as follows," and Herrick ticked off on his fingers. "Joyce first, on the authority, mainly, of the pistol. He said he got it from the Don, so I suspected Manuel. He proved his innocence and accused Pentland Corn. I saw him, and he told me he had picked up the pistol on the lawn of this house. It was his belief that Mrs. Marsh was guilty." "And myself?" said Stephen with a smile. "No, you were like Bess, and came into the matter on your own account. I never believed you had anything to do with the affair. But your stepmother is the last whom I believed might have something to do with it. Certainly she had. But from her letter we know she didn't kill the man. And here we come to a dead stop." "What about Frisco?" said Marsh Carr. "I believe he is the guilty person," said Dr. Jim positively. "Are you going to defend him, Bess?" The girl looked troubled. "I admit that matters look black against him," she said slowly. "He threatened the Colonel. He was alone in the house with him, and Mrs. Marsh found him ready to fly. On the other hand, there is something to be said in his favour. Evidently he should have had a share in this treasure. For some reason the Colonel would not give it to him during his life, and only afforded him a chance of getting it after Stephen's death." "Not even then," interrupted Herrick, "for if Stephen had fulfilled the conditions of the will, the fortune would become his absolutely, and he would be able to will it away." "Then I can't understand it," said Bess, "unless Frisco knew of this unjust will, for that it is. If he helped to get the treasure, and murdered the Colonel out of revenge." "I believe he did," said Stephen. "No," put in Dr. Jim briskly, "I do not agree with you. It is my opinion that what Mrs. Marsh said to me before she died was the right view." "What was that?" "Frisco and the Colonel fought a duel. I believe that Frisco came back from the inn drunk and filled with fury against the Colonel. It might have been that through the visit to Mrs. Marsh in the afternoon he had found out all about the will. The Colonel probably defied him, and then Frisco would suggest a duel. He fired first, and the Colonel fell with his still loaded weapon in his hand." "That is all theory," said Bess, still defending the ex-sailor. "But you seem to forget, Jim, that the death shot was fired with that clumsy pistol. If there had been a duel, Frisco would have had at least as good a weapon as the Colonel. There are plenty of revolvers of the new pattern in the gun room. I am sure Frisco would not have placed himself at such a disadvantage. And again, the silver bullet. Why should Frisco have used that?" Dr. Jim rubbed his head with a vexed air. "I'm afraid you are right, Bess," he said. "A duel is out of the question. I can't see anything ahead. As far as I am concerned, I give up trying to solve the riddle." "So do I," said Marsh Carr. "I know now that my poor mother did not kill the man. So that is all I care about. Let the matter rest, Herrick. You can send Santiago to Mexico, I suppose?" "Yes, but I think he will want some money." "Give him what he wants and let him go." "I think that will be best, and as for Joyce, I'll see that he keeps quiet." Bess struck in. "What about Frisco?" "He must look after himself," said Dr. Jim. "Innocent or guilty, we can do nothing with him so long as he remains in hiding." "But you can find him?" "Through Joyce, yes, I can. But on the whole I prefer to let sleeping dogs lie. No, Bess, the whole thing is ended. Now comes the peaceful times. It is necessary to cultivate our garden, as says Voltaire." Stephen laughed. "I think so too," said he. "For my part, I intend to put the whole matter out of my head, and arrange with Ida as to the date of our marriage. As my poor mother has died so lately, we can have a quiet wedding, but married I shall be as soon as I can." "Why?" asked Bess. "In the first place, I want Ida to be my wife because I love her dearly, and in the second, I want to marry her and make my will after the marriage in her favour." "Why can't you make it now?" "It would not be legal. Marriage invalidates a will." Herrick, who had been thinking, looked up with bright eyes. "Stephen," he said, "you are afraid of Frisco." "Yes, I am. He may try and murder me to get the money. So by marrying Ida and leaving it to her, I shall put the matter out of his power. Once he gets to know that the money has gone from him for ever, he may leave me alone. He tried through Santiago to kill me once and failed. He may not fail the second time." "There is something in that," said Herrick, and then the council of war, as Bess called it, broke up. The final decision of the three was to let the case stand where it was. They washed their hands of the whole affair. For the next fortnight there was absolute peace. Stephen and Ida arranged to be married in 2 months, and Dr. Jim began to talk of his future with Bess. Jim did not want to live with Stephen after the marriage, and yet he could not leave him without forfeiting his income. Of course Stephen insisted that Herrick should take a certain sum a year until he got on his feet, but Jim would not consent to this. "I can't take money I do not work for," he said decisively. "If you will lend me a small sum, I'll go back to London and start a practice in a new place. I expect it will be a long time before I am able to marry Bess, but she will wait for me." Bess expressed herself favourably on this point. She would wait for Jim till her hair grew grey, and meantime she could manage Biffstead for Frank after Ida was settled at the Pines. Neither Stephen nor Ida could do anything with this obstinate couple, and they gave up the attempt in despair. "But I think it is an infernal shame your leaving me in the lurch," said Stephen. "Remember what my mother said." "Oh, I intend to see you through this year, in case Frisco should attempt to stop your visits to the vault," replied Jim. "But after that I must go and carve out my own fortune." "Well, who knows what may happen by then," said Marsh Carr. He was determined in some way to benefit Jim. "I'll have to force the money on the fellow," he grumbled to Ida. "Bess is just as obstinate," she sighed. "However, they will be with us for some months yet. Wait and see, Stephen." Herrick meanwhile was priding himself that all was at an end. He wrote to Joyce stating that he intended to do nothing, and also let Santiago know his decision. From neither did he receive an answer, but this he did not mind. "They are powerless to do harm," he said to Bess. And indeed he never expected to hear of the pair again. But one morning Bess came to him with the Daily Telegraph, and pointed out in silence a cipher message in the agony column. It was worded similarly to that put in before, and asked Frisco to meet the inserter at Hyde Park Corner at 3 o'clock in 2 days. Said Jim meditatively. "Robin wants to see his father again." "What will you do, Jim?" asked Bess anxiously. "Nothing. Why should I? If Robin meets his father they will plot against Stephen. They can't do anything but physical harm, and I am always with him." But Bess was not to be put off in this way. "I really think you should write to Mr. Joyce about it, Jim." "He will not answer." "Perhaps not, but he will see that you have your eye on him." "True enough. I'll see to it, Bess." Jim fully intended to do so, but foolishly put off the matter for a few hours. He wrote to Joyce only on the day before the appointed meeting, and on the next day received a telegram to the effect that it was not Joyce who had inserted the cipher, nor so, said the wire, had Don Manuel. "What the devil does this mean?" said Jim to himself. "Is it a lie or a truth? If a lie, Manuel and Joyce are plotting. If true, someone else is taking a hand in the game. I'll see Bess." The advice of Bess was that Jim should go up to town without delay. "I am sure there's some mischief brewing," she said. "You had better go up by this afternoon's train." "No," said Jim after a pause. "I'll see Steve first. He must know all about this before I go. In fact, I think I'll take him with me." "But he has gone away for the day," said Bess. "You know he went out cycling with Ida. He won't be back all day. You have no time to lose." "I'll wait until he comes back," said Herrick. "I'll tell you what, Bess. This may be a scheme to get me away from Stephen, in order that they may try and hurt him during my absence. After that assault of Manuel's, I'm never easy in my mind away from the boy. I can't leave him here. If I go up to town, he must come with me." Bess was struck by this view of the matter. There might be something in it, she thought. The consequence was that Herrick waited the return of Stephen, and arranged to go up to town with him the next morning. All the same, Stephen laughed at Dr. Jim. "You are a perfect old woman about me," he said. "I can look after myself." "I am sure you can deal with an honourable foe," said Jim. "But here there is every probability that you may be struck in the dark." Stephen shrugged his shoulders. "Very well, Jim, you know best. We can go to town by the midday express tomorrow." But before they left the Pines, they received a surprise. In the Times newspaper, which usually arrived shortly after 11, Stephen found some news which surprised him. He went at once in search of Dr. Jim, and found him buttoning his gloves on the doorstep, waiting for the cart to come round. "What do you think of that, Herrick?" said the Squire. "The devil!" said Jim, and well he might. There was a paragraph in the paper to the effect that the man called Frisco, who was wanted for the murder of Colonel Carr of Saxham, had been captured on the preceding day. No further details were given, but what Herrick read was quite sufficient. He dropped the paper and stared at Stephen. "Shall we need to go up to town now?" asked the Squire. "Yes, we must catch this train. Here comes the cart. I shall go and see Joyce at his flat. He may know what this means." "What about Bess?" asked Stephen. "We have no time to talk over the matter with her now. She will see the news in the Telegraph. We can send her a wire from Beorminster Station, not to worry herself. Jump in, Steve." In a few minutes they were driving hard for the cathedral city. At the station Herrick sent the proposed wire to Biffstead, and they caught the express. "We shall be in town for a few days over this," said Herrick, when they were comfortably settled. "I think I can see." "See what?" asked Marsh Carr. "What it means? This is the revenge of that blackguard Santiago for losing the money. Do you think he put in the cipher?" "I am sure he did, and gave the information to the police meantime. No doubt when Frisco arrived at the rendezvous, thinking to meet his son, he was arrested by officers in plain clothes. I have not much sympathy for Frisco, who I fear is a bad lot. All the same, it is hard that he should be tripped up in his stride by that brute of a greaser." "It might be so. I wonder if Don Manuel has stayed to see the matter out. It is the kind of thing he would like to do." "Oh, I am sure of that, Steve. All the same, he wants to look after his own skin. When Frisco is tried, he will tell all he knows about the Mexican's doings out of revenge. Santiago can't face an inquiry, as you know. His assault on you is enough to get him into serious trouble. No, my friend, Don Manuel has done his mischief and cleared out. By this time he's on his way to the New World. Beast, muttered Herrick between his teeth. I should like to make it hot for him. On arriving in town, Herrick sent Stephen with the luggage to the hotel in Jeremy Street, and himself drove off to West Kensington. He learned from the porter that Joyce was in, and ran upstairs. In a few minutes he was seated in the little man's drawing room, listening to his reproaches. "I did not think you would sell me like this, Herrick," said Robin, wringing his hands in his usual womanish way. "Whatever I may have done to you, you should have kept faith with me. You always pretended to be so superior." "Ah, did I?" said Herrick calmly, but a trifle bewildered at these accusations. "And now perhaps you will tell me what I have done." "You know well enough. You put that cipher in the paper and betrayed my unfortunate father." "I did not think it of you." "He was arrested at Hyde Park Corner?" "Yes, at 3 o'clock yesterday. Of course he thought I put the cipher in and came to meet me. But why do I tell you all this? You are perfectly well aware of the success of your treachery." Herrick shrugged his shoulders. At the present moment he did not think it necessary to correct the man. "How about your friend Santiago?" "I wish he was here to punish you," cried Joyce venomously. "He was quite as clever as you, Herrick. But you waited till he sailed, before plotting to capture my father." "So the Don has sailed. When did he go?" "4 days since," replied Robin, dropping into a chair. "As if you didn't know. Why do you come here to exult over me?" "Because I wish to tell you that you were wrong in thinking I put that cipher in the paper. As I wrote to you from Saxham, I decided to let the matter rest. Whether your father was guilty or innocent, I did not care, so long as you and he left Marsh alone. The man who put that into the paper was Santiago." "I do not believe it." Herrick shrugged his shoulders. "As you please, but it is true for all that. I know the cipher, but I give you my word I did not insert it. You knew the cipher, and I am sure you did not use it to betray your father. The only other person who knew it was the Don, and he has left this last sting behind him out of revenge for losing the money." Robin shook his head. "I might believe that," he said, "if I did not know it was you." "But I tell you it was not," cried Jim impatiently. It was. Those private detectives who worked for you told me all about it. You told them to have my father arrested." "Belcher and Kidd?" cried Herrick, jumping up. "Ah, you know the name. Yes, they gave notice to the police and had my poor father taken. I guess it was their work, and through you." Dr. Jim stood for a moment in a brown study. He saw well enough what had occurred. The ferret had made use of Santiago to find out the business, and knowing of the reward, he made use of the information extorted from Santiago. I expect they let him leave England on condition that he told them the business and helped them to trap Frisco by means of the cipher. The scoundrels! "Well," said Robin, "what are you going to do now?" "I am going to see Belcher and Kidd," said Herrick, "and I tell you, Robin, that your friend Santiago has done all this. I have had no hand in it." "But why should Santiago?" "You had better ask your father that," said Herrick. "I suspect he has no cause to love that Mexican. You can believe me or not, Robin, but the truth is the truth. I have not played you false." Robin shook his head. He still doubted. Jim tried no longer to convince him, but left the flat to have it out with the treacherous firm he had employed. Chapter 24. The Story of Frisco. It was not until Herrick was well on his way back to the centre of the town that he remembered his omission to ask Robin about the typewritten letter. But after all it did not matter. He knew perfectly well that Joyce had typed it at his father's dictation, and the denial or admission of the little man would make no difference. Things had got past that point. "I must see Belcher and Kidd," said Herrick to himself, "and learn exactly how Santiago managed the business. Then I'll give Frith a look in. I must find some way of speaking to Frisco. Now that he is driven into a corner, he may tell the truth, that is, if it is not likely to hang him." When he arrived at the Strand office of the private inquiry firm, he was received by Kidd. Belcher, it appeared, had gone out for the day on business. Kidd was a heavy man with a red face and a pair of leering gray eyes. Dr. Jim could put up with the ferret, but Kidd he detested. However, as Kidd was the only representative of the firm present, he tackled him, and with no light hand, for Jim was in a royal rage at the way he had been tricked by this cunning pair of rascals. "What is this I hear about the arrest of the man Frisco?" he asked. "Just this, Doctor," replied Kidd, in his heavy voice, but civilly enough. "Don Manuel Santiago gave Belcher the tip on how Frisco could be trapped, and as me and him wanted to earn the reward, we fixed the matter up." "Against my wish," retorted Dr. Jim. "Did I not say that you were not to meddle in the matter? And why shouldn't we get the reward if we could, sir? I had my own reasons that Frisco should be left at large. You have spoiled a plan of mine, and likely as not have caught the wrong man." "As to that, sir," said Kidd doggedly, "I don't know. But right or wrong, we've caught the man and claimed the reward." "It is offered by Mr. Stephen Marsh Carr," said Herrick coolly, "and the matter is in my hands. It is just as likely as not that I may stop Mr. Marsh Carr from paying you one penny. You had better have done my business properly, Kidd." "We did do it properly," said Kidd in a surly tone. "I don't think so. It was my wish that the Mexican should be watched. You have let him leave the country." "I didn't," protested Kidd, who would have been insolent but that he was afraid of losing the reward. "That was Belcher's game." "Belcher's price for receiving instructions how to trap Frisco?" scoffed Herrick. "Do you think I don't know that Santiago taught the cipher to your damned partner?" "You might be civil, Dr. Herrick." "I shall be what I please. You were engaged by me to do certain business, and you have done it badly. Had I wanted Frisco caught, I should have told you. Now, just you let me know how it all came about." "What about the reward, sir?" "I'll see to that. You fools, to go against me like this. I can do your business considerable damage by telling the way you have tricked me." "Oh, sir, you won't do that," growled Kidd, now thoroughly frightened. "It all depends on how you conduct yourself. The harm is done, but I must know how Santiago managed the business." "It was this way, sir," replied the cowed Kidd. "Belcher watched the foreign cove, sir, and kept out of sight. But the Don knew him from going to the gambling club." "Ah, that's another matter I can spoil for you, Kidd. I know too much of your shady business for you to play the fool with me. Go on, man." It took Kidd all he knew to keep his temper under this speech, but he knew that Dr. Herrick would do what he had threatened if he was not implicitly obeyed. Had Jim been a smaller man, Kidd might have tried conclusion with his fists, but he knew Herrick too well to attempt such folly. Once upon a time Kidd had seen the doctor thrash a larger and much heavier man. From that day he resolved never to have a fight with a man so versed in the noble art as this high-tempered gentleman. "Well, sir," he continued in a sulky growl, "it was this way. Santiago spotted Belcher and asked him what he was up to. Belcher would not tell, but in the end the Don got the truth out of him. Then he said that if Belcher and me could catch Frisco, we could get a bigger sum of money than by watching him. Belcher was always anxious to know what was at the back of all this. When he heard it was the Carr murder case, He saw that it was a big thing for him and me. So he said he would let the Don go if he helped him to catch Frisco. Then the Don showed us the cipher. He wrote it out himself and put it in the newspaper. Frisco came to the place, and me and Belcher had a detective and a warrant. We caught him easy. He's now in quod, sir. And Santiago is on the high seas on his way to Mexico. You are a precious pair of scoundrels, kid. Why did you tell Mr. Joyce that I had managed all this business?" "It was the Don as asked us to do that, sir." "To make trouble, I suppose," said Herrick, rising. "You send Belcher to see me at the Guelph Hotel this evening. I have something to say to him." "Take care, sir. The ferret ain't an easy man to tackle." Herrick paused at the door and looked the big man up and down. "Confound your insolence," he said. "Do you think you or that rat can stand up against me? I can ruin both of you if I choose, and stop you getting that reward. As for Belcher, if he is impudent, I'll wring his neck." "I'm sorry we did it, sir." "You may well be," was Herrick's grim reply. "But I ain't going to be bullied by anyone," said Kidd with sudden anger. "That is quite enough, my man," replied Dr. Jim, opening the door and speaking quietly. "If you try that game, you'll get the worst of it." Kidd looked dangerous for a moment, but after a glance into the eyes of his proposed antagonist, he cooled down considerably. He knew perfectly well that Herrick could smash him. Moreover, the calm courage of Herrick quelled his brute passion. Dr. Jim waited for a time, then departed, leaving Kidd growling and cursing in impotent rage. "A dangerous ruffian," thought Herrick as he went into the Strand. "But I think he and Belcher know me too well to play the fool." For the moment he intended to go back to the Guelph Hotel and see Stephen, but on reflection he drove to the solicitors. It was necessary that he should interview Frisco, and Frith would be the man most likely to obtain for him the permission to do so. The lawyer was in, and expressed his pleasure at the capture of Colonel Carr's assassin. "As to that, I am not certain," said Herrick lightly. "I want to hear what he has to say, Frith, and you must get me permission to see the man." "Don't you think he killed Carr?" asked Frith. "On the face of it I do," replied Herrick. "All the same, there have been so many surprises in this case that I am prepared for more. Besides, I am rather mad over the business." And he told Frith how he had been tricked by Belcher and his partner. "Couple of scoundrels," said Frith, nodding. "It's not the first dirty trick they have played. Don't you engage them again, Dr. Herrick. I'll find men who are more to be trusted." "I hope to heaven that I won't have occasion to employ any more private detectives. I tell you what, Frith, ever since I have engaged in this affair, I feel as though I had been bathing in dirty water. But that I promised Mrs. Marsh to protect her son, I should not have done it." "You seem to have gone pretty exhaustively into the business," said Frith, after he had heard the whole story. "For an amateur, you have managed remarkably well." Herrick laughed. "I have made mistakes, I admit. But then, as you say, I am only an amateur and not the detective of fiction. He never makes mistakes. I wish he had had this case to deal with. However, the thing is nearly at an end, thank goodness. It will end with the hanging of Frisco. Who knows, he may have some other story to tell." "You may be sure he will swear that he is innocent," said Frith. "Very likely," responded Herrick. "And the queer thing is, Frith, that he may really be innocent. It looks to me, from what you have told me, as though he were guilty." "Oh, as to that, I've thought several people guilty, and have always found out that I am wrong, when they came to explain. However, I want to see this man, and hear what he has to say. Can you manage it?" "I'll see what I can do. You are at the Guelph Hotel, ain't you? Well, good. I'll see to it. I might come along and call on Marsh Carr." "I should if I were you," replied Dr. Jim with a laugh. Always be attentive to your clients, Frith." Leaving the solicitor to arrange matters, Herrick went back to the hotel and dinner with Stephen. He told him all that he had done, and the Squire was much interested. "I hope it is coming to an end though," he said. "I've had about enough of this sort of thing." "Think of me," said Jim with a shrug. "Oh, you've behaved like a brick, Jim. I do not know how to thank you." "Bosh, my dear chap. There's no question of thanks between you and myself. I promised your mother to see you through, and I intend to keep my word." "And you won't let me make things right for you," grumbled Stephen. "Wait till everything is squared up, then we will see. I may ask you to be my banker after all." "Well, Steve, Santiago has gone away, so you are relieved of at least one of your enemies. Joyce can do nothing without his father, and that gentleman is in jail. Will you want me to go with you tomorrow?" "No, I prefer to see him alone. I'll get more out of him in that way. I wonder what I'll hear this time. However, let us think no more of the matter just now. We might take a turn down to see the Earl's Court exhibition. There's always something going on there. It's not exactly like a theatre, Steve, or I should not ask you to go. But you must be cheered up somehow. We can't stay in this dismal hotel all evening talking about a criminal." Stephen assented, as he always did to whatever Herrick proposed. They went to the exhibition and spent a pleasant evening. When they returned, Dr. Jim retired straightway to bed. "I shall have a lot of talking to do tomorrow, so I must get as much rest as I possibly can," said he. In some mysterious way Frith obtained the required permission, and Herrick found himself introduced into a small cell where Frisco sat on his bed in a gloomy frame of mind. After exchanging a few words with the warder, Frith got the man to go away, leaving Herrick and Frisco alone. "So you are Dr. Herrick," remarked Frisco calmly. "I am glad to meet you." He spoke in a rather refined voice, and did not at all look like the truculent ruffian Herrick had expected to meet. He was no longer fat, but had quite a shapely figure. Also his face had lost the redness of incessant drinking. Misfortune had sobered and improved the man. He was plainly dressed in a suit of dark serge, which, as he afterwards informed Herrick, had been supplied by his son. But even if he had been still more changed, Dr. Jim would have recognized him from the criss-cross scar on his forehead. Frisco saw him looking at it and smiled. "The Colonel's handiwork," he said quietly. "He marked me with a buoy in Los Angelos one drunken evening. But I gave him as good as he gave me, Dr. Herrick. He lost a finger." And Frisco fell to whistling at the pleasing recollection. There was no doubt about the man being a scoundrel. Herrick felt his way carefully. "How did you know me?" he asked abruptly. Frisco smiled. "I heard the man who came with you call you by your name. As for the rest, of course Robin has told me all about you. You are a clever man, Dr. Herrick, and I think a kind one. If you had not been, you would not have burdened yourself with that miserable rat I have the misfortune to call my son. All the same," added Frisco with a scowl, "you trapped me in a rather shabby way." "Ah, that is one reason why I came to see you," said Herrick coolly. "I did not trap you at all. No one was more surprised than I at the news of your arrest. It was Santiago who put that cipher in the paper and told the police about you. And Santiago is beyond your reach on the high seas. So you see that I am not so mean as you thought me." "That's it," said Frisco. "You always fought fair, and I could not understand you playing low down like this. So it was the greaser, was it? By heaven, when I catch him—" Frisco doubled his arm. "It's time he was out of the world," said Frisco. "A beating's too easy. I'll go west for him." How do you mean you'll go west? Asked Herrick, thinking of the man's position, which was apparently considerably within the shadow of the gallows. Frisco looked at him with a careless laugh. He understood. "Oh, I've been in worse holes than this," he said. "Why, once in California the rope was round my neck for horse stealing. Carr got me out of that mess." "You are a great friend of Carr's?" "Why," said the man slowly, "he was my cousin, you know, and we had the same blood in us, the bad Carr blood. How I ever came to have such a brat of a Methodist parson for a son, I can't make out. Got it from his mother, I suppose. She was always a whimpering devil." "I didn't come here to discuss your son and wife, Joyce." "Frisco's my name for the time being," said the man coolly. "When I get across the pond again I'll take a more Christian one." "You won't have an easy time getting out of this scrape." "Well, no, you are about right there, Herrick. You don't mind me dropping the mister, I hope. I feel friendly to you. You are about the only man in the whole lot. Stephen isn't a bad chap, but if he hadn't had you beside him, I'd have got that money. Well, I'm to be tried for my life. What are you going to do, Herrick?" "Something quixotic," replied the doctor. "Robin has no money, neither have you, so I'm going to supply you with a solicitor and see you through. If you are guilty, I wish to see you hanged. If innocent, free." "All the same," said Herrick frankly, "I tell you candidly, Frisco, that I don't think it fair to hang you for the killing of a brute like Carr." Frisco stared at Dr. Jim in a hard, unwinking manner, but he was visibly moved. "You're a white man, Doc," said he, "and I'm a bad lot. All the same, if you don't mind." He held out his hand. "I'll take that only on one condition," said Herrick, "that you tell me you are innocent of murder." Frisco drew back his hand and recovered his hard manner. "You bet I'm not," he said. "That is where Carr had the pull over me. There are 2 towns in South America I daren't go near." He burst out laughing. "So you won't shake hands," said he. "Well, I don't blame you. I'm a bad lot, but Carr was a damned sight worse, sonny. You can take that from me." "We are wasting time, I think," said Herrick coldly. "I want to help you if I can. You shall have a lawyer to defend you. But I want to ask you, as man to man, did you shoot Carr?" Frisco thought for a moment, stroking his chin. "Well, there's not many men I'd tell my mind to, but you are one. I did not kill Carr." "Then who did?" "I'll tell you in a few minutes, but you let me reel out my yarn first. I know most of it from Robin and Santiago." "You don't know all," replied Frisco quietly. "I've been with Carr these 20 years and more. He was a devil and treated me like a dog. I helped him to get that treasure, and he cheated me of my share of it. I shouldn't think you were the man to be cheated. No, in an ordinary way you bet. But the Colonel had the bulge on me, I guess. He could have handed me over to the authorities in San Francisco for a murder." "Oh, don't look scared, Herrick. I'm not going to own up to all my crimes. I have committed heaps though." "Oh, damn your beastly talk," said Herrick angrily, for the shamelessness of the man made him sick. "Just tell me about that night." "All in good time, sonny," said the unmoved Frisco. "I stayed with the Colonel and let him keep my money because I did not want my wife to know I was alive. She was a good woman and I treated her like a brute. That was one reason. The second was because of my own skin. I did not want to be hanged, and Carr could have hanged me any day. The third reason," and here Frisco looked curiously at Herrick, "you'll hardly believe the third reason. But it was a kind of tenderness for Carr. Somehow, devil as he was, I liked him. Never met a man I cottoned to more. He saved my life, I saved his. We fought with knives and with fists, and played the devil with one another all round. Yet somehow We stuck together and never went back on one another. Rum thing, wasn't it, Herrick?" "Honor amongst thieves," said Dr. Jim with a shrug. "You bet that's it," retorted Frisco. "So you can see, Herrick, that I was not the sort of man to put Carr out of the way. I got drunk, so did he, but we held together in that blamed house, always waiting for death." "Ah, the Indians, I suppose." "Santiago told you that, I guess," said the man. "Yes, there was some half Spanish, half Indian greasers in Lima that would have followed us to the end of the world had they spotted our whereabouts. Santiago was one, but he wished for the money on his own hook and didn't split. Well, Carr is dead, so he is safe enough. But if I'm not hanged, I guess Santiago will let out on me. Then I'll have a time getting away." "Was it on account of this fear that Carr built the tower?" Frisco nodded. "You've hit it. Queer chap, Carr. A mixture of bravado and fear. He threw down all the fences and walls, and left the doors of the house open every night, just to show he was not afraid. All the same, he never slept but in that tower. I didn't. If any of the greasers had come, they'd have knifed me easy enough. Well, Carr went under before his time, but by the hand he least expected." "Who was it?" asked Herrick impatiently. "Well," drawled the ruffian, "it wasn't Mrs. Marsh. We had a talk." "I know all about that. I saw the letter you wrote her." "Oh, you did? She kept that as an ace. Robin typed it on his blamed machine for me. I wanted to get the money quietly, but the old lady went under in time and spoilt my game there." "She killed herself," said Herrick curtly. "Did she now?" said Frisco in admiration. "She was a screamer of a woman, not like my wife. Killed herself. Lord," he chuckled. "Go on with your story." "It is a story, isn't it? Well, I guess it was this way. I let Carr keep the money when he was alive, on the understanding that it was all left to me. He made a will in my favour, and then the devil made a later one, giving the money to Stephen with a reversion to me if his bones weren't looked after." "I know," said Herrick coolly, "and you tried to have Stephen disabled." "Right you are. And the blamed Santiago bungled the affair. If I had been on the spot well, that's all done with. About the will. Mrs. Marsh came and kicked up a row about the will in favour of her son, saying the Colonel was going to alter it. She picked up something of that from me when I had a cargo aboard, but I never knew till after she came how Carr was tricking me. When she went, and she did curse him. I had a row with Carr. He told me the kind of will he made. We almost had a stand-up fight. He brought in the murder business about me as usual, and I knuckled under as usual. Then I went off to drink rum at the Carr Arms." "Yes, and to threaten the Colonel?" "Oh, that wasn't on my own account. All I meant was that if I gave the tip to the Lima greasers, Carr would be knifed. That fool Napper thought I meant to do the job myself. Well, sir, I came back and lay down to sleep off the rum. Carr got his own dinner and then dressed himself up as he always did. Blamed foolishness I always called it. Cooking your dinner and then wearing a starched shirt to eat it. Pah!" Frisco spat. "He wanted to keep his self-respect, I suppose. He had no occasion for an article of that sort, Herrick. Self-respect in Carr? Well, I should smile. However, I was asleep. When I was pulling round sober, and thinking of getting up to eat, I heard a shot. Oh, I am too used to the sound of shooting not to know it when I hear it. I wondered if Carr was in the shooting gallery. After a time, 20 minutes maybe, I got up and went into the gallery. No one was there. I went up to the tower after visiting the dining room. I found the Colonel dead. I was in a fright, I can tell you. In a flash I saw that my neck was in the rope. I had threatened the Colonel, and they'd think I killed him. Also, I was wanted in Frisco and South America and half 100 places. My name would come out, maybe, but I'm not afraid of that now, Herrick, and I would be turned off as sure as a gun. I went downstairs and drank some wine in the house, and coming down from a room under the one in which Carr lay shot, I saw someone. As he came down the tower steps, it is my opinion he shot the Colonel. If it wasn't him, I don't know who could have done it. And who was it you say? Why, don't jump, Herrick. It was Sidney Endicott. Herrick stared. That lad never killed the Colonel, he said. Then who did? Asked Frisco impatiently. That boy just hated Carr. I never could make out why, and he was half-witted besides. Then there was the pistol. I read about it in the paper. It's just the kind of weapon a boy of that sort might pick up cheap in a shop of sorts. A man like me would have used a derringer. No, I'm sure the boy shot him. He came right upon me, as cool as you like, and says, "He's quite dead." Did he say that? I swear he did. He's quite dead, say Sidney. Then, before I could get my breath, he went out into the night and I lost him. Why did you not follow? I had to think of my own safety. It was no use my accusing a boy and a half-idiot, you see. No one would believe he killed Carr when I was in the house, and with my blamed past. I just went to the back to make up a bundle and clear out. While I was packing, I heard 3 shots and jumped for the door. Lord, I was in a fright. It was Mrs. Marsh. Yes, she came down looking like a tigress, and said I'd killed Carr. I was at the door with my bundle. I denied it, and said I'd make it hot for her. She said I'd better look after myself, and cleared. I didn't wait, you may be sure, for in spite of her firing the shots, I didn't know but what she'd roused the village. So I went straight across the moor, and caught the train at Southberry. Here I've been hidden in London ever since. I had money. When that ran out, I dropped the Crosset cipher in the paper, and met my fool of a son. Then, well, you know the rest. It's a strange story, said Herrick, much distressed. It did not seem at all unlikely but that Sidney had killed the Colonel. It's a true one. Well, what are you going to do? I shall see this boy and find out if what you say is true. Oh, I expect he's such an idiot that he'll think he's done something fine and own up. But that my neck is in danger, I would not split on Sidney. But they'll only shut him up in an asylum. They would hang me, so of 2 evils I choose the least. Are you off, Herrick? Yes. I'll see if this is true, and get you a lawyer. Thanks, old man, you're a good sort. So long. And Frisco, quite calm, waved his hand as Dr. Jim left the cell. He did not seem to be in the least afraid, and evidently thought his release was a foregone conclusion. A dangerous, cool-headed ruffian was Frisco. Chapter 25. Sidney speaks out. After that interview with Frisco, Dr. Jim took Stephen straight off to Saxham. There was nothing left for him to do in town. Frisco was in prison and safe enough. Joyce shut himself up in his flat and would not even reply to the note Herrick wrote him. Belcher, for obvious reasons, had not called at the Guelph Hotel, and with his partner was keeping out of the doctor's way. Jim saw Firth for a few brief minutes, instructed him to see after the defence of Frisco, and then drove to Paddington, where Marsh Carr awaited him. By favour of the guard and 5 shillings, they secured a smoking carriage to themselves. When the train was fairly out of town, and whizzed through a desolate winter country, Dr. Herrick looked at Stephen. "What do you think of it all?" he asked, lighting his pipe. "This story of Frisco's?" Yes, it's a living truth. I can see by your face that you wish to believe the man a liar. He is, but not in this instance. What he says is absolutely true. I saw his eyes when he spoke. The tongue may lie, but a man's eyes—" Jim shook his head. "But it can't be true," cried Stephen, looking white and worried. "Good heavens, Jim, if Sidney really shot Carr, think of the disgrace to Ida and Bess. Ourselves, I don't mind that, but these poor girls." "Well," said Jim after a pause, "you see it's not so bad as it might be. I am sure you must know of the estimation Sidney is held in, round about Saxham. If it comes out that he shot the Colonel, no one will express any surprise. It's no slur on the girls, Steve. Sidney is looked upon as something beyond the pale of humanity." "What will they do with him?" asked Stephen anxiously. "If he really did commit the crime, he will be placed in an asylum. The boy is too queer to be judged by ordinary standards. Frisco cleared out, although he knew Sidney had killed Carr, because he thought no one would believe the boy had done it. The suspicion certainly would have rested on Frisco. He would have been wiser to have given himself up. But for the reason I told you of, the same reason that kept him quiet under the Colonel's unjust appropriation of his property, Frisco preferred to cut. He is wiser now that he has had time to reflect over the matter. His devilries in the Americas were done under other names, and, as Joyce, he will not be wanted in San Francisco. I dare say if he had not been caught, he would have given himself up in the long run. It was the Don he was afraid of. Now the Don is away, Frisco is convinced he will be set free." "He must stand his trial." "Certainly. I have told Frith to see after him. But his defence will be that Sidney killed the man. There is no way of averting that. The question in my mind," said Herrick, looking at Marsh Carr, "is whether the boy really did so." "Have you any doubt on the subject?" asked Stephen eagerly. "I have a great many doubts," replied Jim dryly, "and until the person who really murdered Carr confesses, I shall continue to doubt. You see, Steve, ever since I took up this matter, I have been following up false trails. Every person I have stumbled upon, and to whose guilty evidence at the time procurable pointed, has laid the blame on someone else, who in turn has passed on the guilt to another party. I suspected Joyce. He accused Santiago. The Don said Pentland Corn was guilty. Corn declared that Mrs. Marsh had fired the shot. Now we know from accurate evidence that all these persons are innocent. Frisco was suspected from the very first. He is caught, and swears, truly enough according to his own belief, that the boy murdered the Colonel. How do I know but what Sidney may be able to prove his innocence and accuse someone else? The chain may go on endlessly, so far as I can see." "I understand the difficulty," replied Stephen wearily, "but I cannot for the life of me see why Sidney should kill the man." "There comes in the queer character of the boy," said Herrick. "He detested the Colonel, said he was a bad man. He might have got into his head in some way or another that such a man was better off out of the world. If so, he would make no more account of killing Carr than he would of putting a fly out of existence. Indeed, he would rather spare the fly, for I have noticed that he is tender to all that breathes." "But would he keep quiet over the matter?" "I think so. Sidney was never the boy to talk. Then there is the pistol, Stephen. That is an old fashioned weapon that a boy might buy in Beorminster for a few pence, or he might have found it in the lumber room of the Grange. There are many of these ancient firearms to be found in the houses of old families. If Sidney dropped across such a weapon, he might have then concluded to kill Carr. You see, from the account of Frisco, that he came down the tower stairs and said quite calmly that the Colonel was dead. He may just as calmly admit to me or to you that he killed the man." Mad, mad, groaned Marsh Carr. He must be mad. No, that does not follow. The boy is strange. There are things about him which I cannot explain. So far as I can see, Sidney does not come within the range of science. That foretelling of your mother's death, his extraordinary statement that you were in danger, puzzled me beyond words. I must believe, because I am convinced by the evidence of my own senses. All the same, I cannot explain or understand. There are laws of nature with which we are unacquainted. I believe that this boy comes under some unknown laws. You cannot account for the action of such a person. The boy would do things which we should call wrong, yet he would see no harm in doing them. If he is guilty, he will be put away in an asylum. At the same time, I am sure he is perfectly sane. I am puzzled myself about him, admitted Stephen, and he is a most uncomfortable boy to have about one. Still, I have always found him upright and honorable. I have never known him to tell a lie. But he must know all about this case, and how Frisco has been accused. I am not so sure of that. Sidney lives with his head in the clouds. He perhaps has heard that Frisco has been accused, but as the man does not now come across his path, he never thinks of any possible danger to him. Again, Stephen, that silver bullet is queer. How do you mean queer? Well, you know the medieval superstition that a warlock can be killed only by a silver bullet. A thing of that sort is exactly what would appeal to the dreamy nature of Sidney. He is something of a mystic himself, remember. He might have taken it into his head that Carr was a warlock who had dealings with the devil. I'm sure he would have every reason to think so, said Marsh Carr. If any man was hand in gloves with Satan, my uncle was that man. You see what you say yourself. Then Sidney, thinking in a less sane fashion on the same subject, might have considered it his duty to deliver the world from such a wizard. He would certainly then use a silver bullet, thinking, according to the medieval superstition, that the man could not be killed by ordinary lead. It's all theory, said Stephen gloomily, and fantastic at that. As you say, all theory and fantastic, admitted Herrick. But you must remember that we are dealing with a fantastic nature. But we must see this boy and question him when we get home. He will deny everything. On the contrary, if I know anything of the boy, he will calmly admit what he has done. You will not tell Bess or Ida? That would be unwise. We must be certain of Sidney first. We shall say nothing tonight, but get Sidney to come over to the Pines on the morrow and ask him frankly if he killed Carr. Bess is sure to ask you about Frisco, said Stephen. Oh, I can baffle her curiosity, replied Herrick. I shall tell her nothing about my visit to the man. All about his arrest she can know. I think it will be better to hold our tongues altogether, Jim. Ida is getting worried by this incessant mystery, although she knows very little. I am sure I don't wonder. I worry myself, however. We must learn what we can from Sidney. I hope to heaven the lad is innocent, but if he is not, I don't look upon him in the light of an ordinary criminal. He is a freak of nature. Were I put into the witness box, I could not say on my oath that he is mad. Let us drop the subject, said Stephen, who looked haggard. I am getting nervous and anxious. Jim acquiesced in this sensible view, and the two betook themselves to the magazines and newspapers. Until they arrived at Beorminster, they said little to one another, and even then were for them taciturn. A groom and a cart awaited them, and they drove to Saxham in silence. It did not do to talk of Sidney with a servant at their elbows. But curiously enough, the groom had news for Stephen, which brought in the name of Sidney. Please, sir, that Italian woman. What is the matter with her? Asked Herrick, who was driving. She is very ill, sir, and it is said she will die. Die? echoed Stephen in surprise. She was not bad enough for that when I saw her last. What do you think, Herrick? She looked very sick certainly, but as far as I can judge, was in no immediate danger of death. Who says this, Parry? The groom sunk his voice to a whisper, and seemed nervous. Master Sidney, he said. Both men looked round at this, then at each other. Herrick was first to break the silence. When did Master Sidney say that, Parry? Yesterday, sir, Mr. Napper. He met him in Beorminster, in the Cathedral Square, about 4 o'clock. He asked him, joking like, where he was going. Master Sidney said, just as quiet as he does speak, sir, that he was going to see the Italian woman die. Napper, was that taken back? You could have knocked him down with a feather, sir. Then Master Sidney said she would die in 2 days, which I take to mean, sir, that she'll go off tomorrow. And I'm sure she will, sir, added Parry with conviction. Is this story known, Parry? Asked his master, rather vexed. No, sir. Napper went at once to see Miss Endicott when he came back to Saxham. She asked him to say nothing about it, but he had already told Phelps the gardener, sir. Then Phelps told us all, sir, but we have said nothing outside about it. See you don't then, said Stephen sharply. The first of my servants who says a word will be discharged. Mind that, Parry. The groom touched his hat and relapsed into silence. Where is Master Sidney now, Parry? Asked Herrick after a pause. At the house in Beorminster, sir. He has been there all night. Miss Endicott went over, but she could not get him away. He says he must stay there until the Italian woman dies, sir. You need say no more, Parry. And the doctor drove on in silence, but Marsh Carr knew from the way he urged the mare how perturbed he was over this information. Stephen was upset himself. There was something disquieting about everything in connection with Sidney. After dinner at the Pines, Herrick made Stephen lie down, as he was yet far from strong, and walked across to Biffstead. Here he saw the 2 girls and Frank, who were very much troubled by this latest freak of their brother. I don't know what to do with him, said Frank. I went over and insisted he should come home. I took him by the shoulder to force him out of the house, but he got in such a passion that I thought he would have a fit. So I left him until you came back. You go over and get him away, Jim, implored Ida. You have more influence over him than anyone else. I have gone, and Bess also, but he will not come. We can't carry him back by main force and make a scandal. I'll go, said Herrick, but I did not know that I had any influence with him. He is a lad one can do nothing with. How does the old woman take his telling her she is about to die? She is quite calm. Evidently she thinks Sidney is a kind of prophet. He is telling her not to be afraid, and talking the queerest things to her. I am sure Sidney is mad, sobbed Ida. He will be shut up in an asylum some day. Herrick said nothing. The poor girl little knew how truly she spoke. If Sidney had indeed killed Carr, he would certainly be shut up. Considering his extraordinary character, perhaps this would be all the better for his friends and relatives, if not for himself. I will go over in the morning, said Herrick on reflection. He may be more reasonable in the morning. I am beginning to understand him a little. I am sure I don't, said Ida, and Frank echoed her opinion. This was natural enough. No man is a hero to his relatives. All this time Bess said nothing. While Jim was away, she had worried much over her brother's freak, but now that the doctor had returned, she was satisfied that all would be well. Herrick exercised over Bess the same influence he did over most people he came into contact with. Stephen and the girls were both more than ordinarily intelligent, but they deferred to Jim in a most remarkable manner. If anyone could manage Sidney, Bess felt that Herrick was the man. Jim was not so certain himself. The boy had never come under his influence, and in his own calm way held his own against everyone. "What about Frisco?" asked Bess, who had followed Herrick down the avenue. "Has he really been arrested?" Dr. Jim nodded. "Santiago betrayed him to some private inquiry agents I employed," he said. "A mean, shabby piece of work, Bess. Joyce put it down to me. I assured him that I had nothing to do with the matter, but he refused to believe me. He is so mean himself that he cannot believe any good of other people," said Bess scornfully. "What is to be done now about Frisco?" "I am thinking," replied her lover evasively. "When I have come to a conclusion I'll tell you, Bess, but I fancy the end is in sight." "I hope so," sighed the girl. "I am so tired of this anxiety." "Shortly you will have no more, dear," and Jim took her in his arms to kiss her good bye. "The night is dark, but the dawn is breaking." Next morning Dr. Herrick walked over to Beorminster. He left Stephen at home, although the Squire wanted to come also. "No," said Jim, "it is best for me to speak to the boy alone. I'll get more out of him." And Stephen recognized that this was the more sensible course. It was 11 o'clock when Herrick rapped at the door of the Beorminster house. It was opened by Sidney, who looked calm and complacent as usual. "I heard you had come back, Dr. Jim," he said. "Did your prophetic instinct tell you that?" asked Herrick testily. The boy was so difficult to understand that he could not help feeling annoyed. A man over 30 does not like treating a lad of 16 as his equal, yet Sidney somehow compelled that respect. "No," replied he sweetly, "I am very stupid about some things. When a thought comes to me, it comes. I cannot call it." "Then the thought came to you that Petronella would die?" "She will die, Dr. Jim. 2 days ago I felt that she would die, so I came over to see her. She was afraid of death till I talked to her. Now she is quite peaceful. She does not fear." "Are you afraid of death, Sidney?" "Why should I be? I know." "You know what?" "That there is nothing to be afraid of." The boy spoke quite serenely and without any suggestion of pose. He had conducted Herrick to the dining room, and the two were seated opposite one another. On the table were the remains of Sidney's breakfast, a glass of milk, some fruit, and a loaf of bread. "I had to get these myself," he said. "Petronella is in bed in Mrs. Marsh's room. She is very ill." "I knew she was ill some time ago," replied Herrick, trying to assert himself, "but I think I can cure her." "She will not live," said Sidney, staring in the most unwinking manner at Dr. Jim. "She will die before sunset, I know." "Can you explain how you know?" asked the doctor roughly. This time it was the boy who was puzzled. "I can't," he said. "I feel that Petronella will die. I can say no more than that." Herrick groaned. It was useless to try and understand this extraordinary lad. Evidently he did not understand himself. Yet his former prophecies had come to pass so absolutely that Dr. Jim could not help thinking that this last would come true also. However, this was not the business about which he had come. "Sidney," he said after a pause, "do you know that Frisco, who used to be with Colonel Carr, has been arrested?" "I heard Bess say so." "What do you think of it?" "I never thought of it at all. He is in no danger, Dr. Jim. It was not Frisco who killed Colonel Carr." "How do you know that?" asked Herrick, startled. Was the boy about to confess that he was guilty? "I was in the house just after Colonel Carr was killed." "Oh, then you did not shoot him yourself?" Sidney frowned, but appeared very little disturbed. "Why should I have killed him?" he said calmly. "Colonel Carr was a wicked man. I told him he would die by violence some day, but he only laughed at me. He thought I was mad or a fool. You do also, Dr. Jim." "I don't know what to think," said Jim angrily. I never met anyone like you before, Sidney. If I had not some knowledge that the things you say come true, I should think you are pretending. A boy like you ought to be whipped." "That is what the Colonel said," replied Sidney quietly. "But tell me, Dr. Jim, did you really think I had killed him?" "I did not, but Frisco says you did." "If he believed that, he would not have run away," said Sidney shrewdly. "Well, come to the point. Who murdered the Colonel?" "Petronella," said Sidney. Herrick rose up with a look of surprise. Astonished as he was, he could hardly help laughing. This statement bore out his speech to Stephen. He had said that Sidney would accuse someone else. Now it only remained for Petronella to shift the blame onto the shoulders of a third party. "I do not believe that," said Herrick. "Why should Petronella kill Carr?" "You had better come up and hear what she has to say, Dr. Jim." "In a moment. But tell me how you know. Through your instinct?" Sidney shook his head. "No, that feeling only comes at times," he said. "I do not pretend to know everything. I said so before. I don't know why you should look at me as queer, Dr. Jim," he continued plaintively. "It is not my fault if things come into my head. When they do, I sometimes tell people, but not always. I don't like being laughed at." "You're a queer fish," muttered Dr. Jim, annoyed by this human problem he could not understand. "I should like you to be examined by a committee of doctors." "They would not understand, Dr. Jim, and I can't explain. But you want to hear how I knew. Well, on the night Colonel Carr was killed, I went to the Pine Wood after 7 o'clock." "Had you any premonition that he would be murdered?" "No, I had no feeling of any kind. I was in the wood for some time. At 7:30 I felt hungry, but I did not want to go to Biffstead, as I knew Ida would try and keep me in. It was raining, but I did not mind that. I like the open air where I can breathe. A house makes me choke." "I understand. Go on." "As I was hungry, I thought I would go and get something from Colonel Carr. I sometimes went to see him, though I did not like him. He was always kind to me, although I think he was afraid. Well, I went into the house just before 8. "You said 7:30 just now." "I did not go in at once," said the boy, with a gesture of irritation. "Do not interrupt me, Dr. Jim. I went into the dining room and found the dinner on the table, but the Colonel was not there. I took a piece of bread and some water. While I was eating, I heard a shot. I wondered what it was." "You did not feel that murder was committed?" "No. Why should I have felt? I just wondered what the shot might be. After a bit I went out into the hall to see if the Colonel had come in. I thought he might be out. I saw Petronella run through the hall and out into the night. I wondered what she was doing there, and followed her, but I lost her as she went through the woods. Then I walked about for a time up till 9. I thought again about the shot and went back to the house. I went up the tower and saw Colonel Carr lying dead, so I knew Petronella had killed him. I came down the—" "How was it you did not meet Frisco, who had gone up to see the Colonel?" "I heard someone coming, and went into a lower room. I thought it might be Petronella coming back. I saw it was Frisco, and saw him come down again. Then I came and said to him, 'He is quite dead,' and went out. After that I went on the moor. Then sometimes afterwards I heard 3 more shots. I saw Bess and her lantern and went home." "Why did you say nothing of all this before?" asked Herrick. "There was no reason. If Frisco had been caught before, I should have told you. But he had got away, and I did not think it was right to tell about Petronella. Colonel Carr was a wicked man, and he deserved to be killed. He did a lot of harm," said Sidney, with a shudder. "How comes it you tell me now, Sidney?" "Because Bess told me Frisco had been arrested. He is wicked too, but I do not want to see him hanged for shooting Carr, as I knew that he was innocent. I came over to see Petronella, for I had a feeling that she would die, and I wanted to know from herself before she died if she was guilty. She denied it at first, but I said I would not go away until she told me all. That was why I stayed all night. She tried to run away. I said I would tell the police." "That was unlike you, Sidney." "No, it wasn't," replied the boy positively. "I knew that Petronella was the one who shot Carr. If she did not confess, Frisco would be hanged." "You never thought that you might be accused?" "No, I did not do it," replied Sidney calmly. "Why should I be accused?" Herrick sighed impatiently. The boy could not or would not understand. "I suppose then Petronella confessed in the end?" "Yes. I made her write it down that she killed Carr. It is in Italian, but I do not know the language. You must see that it is all right, Dr. Jim. I did that because I thought she might die before you arrived. But now you are here, come up and see her. I will go for Inspector Bridge." Dr. Jim was aghast. Here was Sidney in his new character. Why for Bridge? "He must hear her confession," said Sidney, putting on his hat. "Perhaps she has written down something different in the Italian. I will give you the paper when I come back. But I must go for Bridge," and Sidney, before Herrick could say a word, was out of the room. Dr. Jim heard the front door close behind the boy. "There is not much insanity about this act," muttered Herrick to himself. "I shall see Petronella at once." He smiled grimly. "I wonder who she will accuse," he said. Chapter 26. The Truth. In the room where Mrs. Marsh had died, and in the same bed, lay the old Italian woman dying also. She was sitting up, with a red woolen shawl wrapped round her bony shoulders, and her lean hands told her rosary. Whatever views Sidney might have instilled into her regarding life beyond the grave, Petronella still remained within the fold of Peter. She was muttering prayer after prayer with a feverish haste, and the black beads slipped quickly from between her fingers. The room was dusky, dark, and untidy. Near the bed was a bottle of Chianti and some bread, but the flask was full and the loaf untouched. Petronella was past earthly food. Herrick saw the mark of death on her yellow face. She seemed pleased to see him, and not at all afraid. Receiving him with a chuckle, she interpreted the look in his eyes. "So he has told you, that young Signor," she said in her own tongue. "Ah, I thought he would. It was time. But too late, Signor Dottore, too late for the prison. I go into purgatory. £10 for masses, Signor. You will see that they are said. Then I may get into paradise to rest. I need rest. All my life I have worked hard. The good God will not be hard on poor old Petronella." Dr. Jim took a chair by the bedside and felt her pulse. "You need nourishing food, Petronella," he said soothingly. "A cup of soup now." Signor Dottore, that will not help me. I am dying. You do not know. I never told you. Cancer, Signor, a bad cancer. I shall die." "I may be able to. No, I do not want that. They would put me in prison. Let me die. The young Signor said I would die. It is foolish to live. I will go to my padrona and explain." "Then you did shoot the Colonel, Petronella?" Si. The old woman coughed. "He was a devil man. He was cruel to my padrona, to the young Signor. Also he had the evil eye. Hard to kill." "Oh yes," she chuckled. "But the silver bullet. Ah yes, the silver bullet." Dr. Jim looked at her in silence. He wondered that he had not suspected Petronella before. After Bess had told him about the bullet, he had been certain that the person who had fired the shot was of a superstitious nature. Mrs. Marsh, being Italian, might have thought of the same thing. But she was educated and above such folly. Petronella, a woman of the people with feudal instincts, had clung to that wild belief of the Middle Ages. She was the one person of Dr. Jim's acquaintances who would have dreamed of such a thing, and her he had not suspected. "Why did you use a silver bullet, Petronella?" "Ah, the man was a diavolo, a witch creature. He had the evil eye. Did I not meet with an accident after he had overlooked me? It was better that he should die, rather than live to ruin the Signora." "A silver bullet? Only in that way, Signor, can those aided by the devil perish. I am not sorry. No, it was a good deed. The young Signor said so." "All the same, Petronella, I must tell you that Frisco is accused of this murder. He is in prison. It is unfair that he should suffer for what you have done. So you must make confession." "I have done so, Signor Dottore. I wrote with my own hand in my own language that I, Petronella, had slain this devil man with a silver bullet." "Even so," said Herrick, "but I want to write down your confession myself. You can sign it, and the police officer can witness it. Thus will the man who is in prison for your crime be saved." "The police," echoed Petronella. I knew they would come. But they will not put me in prison, Signor. I die, and that soon." "Ah, as you will. But you have been good to me. I will do what you want. Yonder in the corner, Signor, the padrona's ink and pen, also the paper. Write down what I say, and I will sign. What does it matter now I die?" Jim found the materials, and placing them on the little round table, looked at Petronella. She nodded and muttered a prayer, then began to speak in her usual rapid manner. She spoke in Italian, but Dr. Jim, for the benefit of Bridge, translated it into English. Luckily Herrick was an excellent linguist, and found no difficulty in doing this. "Signor," began Petronella, "it happened in this way. I was at the house of that devil man with the Signora, a long time ago. The padrona went to ask him for money. He refused, the cursed robber, and we were so poor, so poor. My Signora, the last of a great race, poor. Gran Dio, it was evil that she should be poor. But the devil man would give not 1 lira. Ah, no, he kept all. I was angered because of my padrona. I saw on the table a cup of silver, and that I took." "You stole the cup?" "Why not? My padrona was poor. That devil man saw me. He struck me. Yes, even me, Petronella, a free Italian. And he overlooked me with his evil eye. I shuddered. I knew that I would have an accident, and the next day I hurt myself. Ah, the wicked wretch! I gave back the cup as he made me. But when we went down the stairs I took another of silver. This time he saw me not, and I carried it here under my shawl." "What did Mrs. Marsh say?" "My padrona was angry, but I did not care. I did not sell the silver cup, as she was angered, but I kept it, yes, for the silver bullet." Herrick looked up from his writing. "Had you made up your mind then to kill Colonel Carr?" he asked. "No, not then. I should have liked to, because he cast on me the evil eye. Ah, Dio mio, I made horns, but it was no use. I had an accident. No, Signor Dottore, I did not wish to kill him then, very much. Later on, when the will. "Did you know about the will?" Si. It was that Frisco told me. I was in the market, he also, and he had the wine in him. He talked foolishly, and said that his Signor would make another will leaving all the money to him. I saw that my poor padrona and the young Signor Stephano would be ruined. I came back and told the Signora. She was angered. Then she said she would go to see this devil man. Signor," here Petronella clutched Herrick by the wrist, "I knew that my padrona had a temper. she could rage. I feared what she might do. I watched. Ah, yes, I watched. She was to dine with the padre at Saxham, and then see the wicked Signor. Did you not know she would see him in the afternoon? No, she said she would go about 9 and see him. That after his dinner he would be in a good temper, and might not do this wrong. Signor, I saw that she took with her a pistol." "The revolver of Mr. Marsh?" Si, she took it from the case in the room of the young Signor Stephano. I saw her. I knew that if the devil man laughed at her, she would kill him. Yes, she would." "No, Petronella," said Dr. Jim soothingly. "She only meant to frighten him. So she said in the letter you gave me." "No, Signor," replied the old woman indignantly. "The daughter of the Michelotti would not be so weak. She would have killed him." "Upon my soul," muttered Herrick, "I believe she would." "I was in great alarm, Signor," went on Petronella. "I thought if she did so that she would be put in prison. It was terrible to think so. I was angered against the devil man. He had struck me. He had looked upon me with the evil eye. Now he would tempt my Signora to kill him, and so be put in prison. I saw that all would be lost. Then I said to myself, to me, Petronella, that I would kill him alone." The old woman drew herself up in bed, and looked majestic as she spoke. Herrick was profoundly sorry for her. She had carried her feudal instincts to excess, and had so jeopardized her life for the sake of her mistress. He understood well how she had been urged to do this. The blow, the evil eye, the possibility of her young master being ruined by another will, and above all, the chance that her Signora might kill the man herself. A fiery, faithful creature like Petronella could not let such things be. As she said, she made up her mind to kill Carr before Mrs. Marsh could see him. Where she made the mistake was that she thought her mistress would see the man at night. As a matter of fact she did, but already had seen him in the day. Perhaps Mrs. Marsh guessed what Petronella might do, and she had told a falsehood about the time of calling at the Pines. "When the Signora departed," said Petronella, rocking to and fro, for she was in pain, "I got my pistol. Si, Signor, it was the pistol of my husband. He fought for the King when we freed Italy. I too was in the war. I shot many, oh many. He showed me I was not afraid to shoot." This piece of information showed Herrick how it was Carr had been shot through the heart. Petronella, having been in the Italian War of Liberation, knew how to handle firearms. Probably she was an excellent markswoman. The shooting of Carr proved her to be so. "I had bullets," said Petronella, "but they were of lead. I knew that the devil man, protected by the wicked one, could not be slain by only leaden bullets. I wanted a silver one. Ah, gran Dio, there was no silver in this house. Then I thought of the cup I had taken. I got it and melted it down over a big fire. I made 3 bullets in the mold of my husband. I took his powder flask, but it was empty. The young Signor Stephano had powder in his room. I stole it. Then I loaded the pistol and set it aside till the night." "Where was Mr. Marsh all this time?" asked Herrick. "He was in the house in the afternoon, and went to eat with a friend of his, Signor Barker." "The newspaper editor," said Dr. Jim. He remembered that this was the man who looked after the Beorminster Chronicle, and took an interest in Stephen's poetry. "He dined with him?" "Si, Signor, and said he would not be back till late. He was to bring home the Signora from Saxham. I was all alone, and I saw what I could do." "And what did you do, Petronella?" "I hid the pistol in my shawl and walked to Saxham. I got there before 8. I went to the big house. I found it empty. I climbed the stairs where I knew the devil man would be in the tower. He was standing by his bed, dressed to eat. He took up a pistol, but let it down when he saw it was only old Petronella. You mean he still held the pistol? Yes, I waited for a moment as he stared at me, and then shot him. I aimed for the heart, said Petronella, hugging her knees. The silver bullet went through the heart. Oh, my husband showed me how to shoot, Señor. What did you do then? I made sure the devil man was dead. He fell on his face. Then I went down the stairs. I saw someone. I did not know who it was, but the young Señor told me he was there. I ran through the pine wood and he followed. I hid behind a tree, and then after a time I got home. No one knew that I had been out, and when the Señora and the young Señor Stefano came back, I said nothing. The Señora looked white. She said nothing to me, but I knew that she had seen the devil man. What did I care? She could not kill him again. That is all, Señor. You lost the pistol? I lost my husband's pistol, said Petronella precisely. It dropped from my pocket when I ran. I did not care. No one would know that it belonged to me. Then I heard Frisco had gone. I was glad. They would not think I had killed the devil man. Didn't Mrs. Marsh suspect? My Señora? No, she said nothing. I was certain she had fired the other 3 shots, for I know my Señora. Also, I looked at the revolver in the case when she put it back. If Frisco had been arrested at once, would you have spoken out? No, Frisco was a bad man too. I would be glad if they put him in prison. Why do you tell me now then? The young Señor made me tell. Ah, he is a terrible young Señor. He makes me afraid. He said I would die, and that I must tell at once or he would speak to the police. Well, I have told, and I die. Have you all down, Señor? I will sign. Ah, Dio mio. She started up in bed. The police. It was indeed Bridge who entered with a red face and astonished eyes. He was followed by Sidney, looking calm, just as though the inspector had not been scolding him all the way because he had not told about Petronella before. But it took someone stronger than Inspector Bridge to frighten Sidney. For a moment the inspector stared at the bed and at his prisoner as he regarded the old woman. Then he spoke to Dr. Jim. "This is an extraordinary thing, sir," he said slowly. "Very," assented Herrick. "I only knew of it myself an hour ago." "I thought this young gentleman was telling me a lie." "It is the truth," said Petronella, pointing to Herrick. "The Señor has written all down. Here, see me sign my name, and you can say I signed it." Inspector Bridge wanted to talk, but Dr. Jim made him a sign to be silent. The old woman was sinking fast, and there was no time to be lost. With great difficulty she signed her name. Herrick and Bridge appended their signatures, and all was over. "This will set Frisco free," said Bridge, "and now I must see about getting a warrant out for this woman." "It is too late," said Dr. Jim. "She's dying." "She won't die," said Bridge with a disdainful smile. "All this is done to cheat the law. I have a policeman downstairs. He shall come up and watch her while I go for a warrant of arrest." "She will die before sunset," said Sidney calmly, and went to the old woman. He took her hand. "Good bye, Petronella. You will be happy soon. You know what is to be done." Si, I know. I am happy. I will go to my husband," said Petronella. Then she looked at Dr. Jim with a worn smile. "I did it for my Señora," she said. "You can go. You can do me no good now." Herrick saw that well enough. However, he went to see if he could get a nurse to heat some soup and revive the woman. To be sure, it was little use bringing her back to health and strength just to hang her. But Dr. Jim acted for the best. He went out with Sidney and the inspector, leaving 2 policemen in charge. Bridge had the confession in his pocket. and intended to go up to town to deliver it into the hands of the proper authorities. Frisco had to be released, seeing that he was innocent. "And I always thought he was," said Bridge, lying in the most shameless manner. Sidney looked after the man with a queer smile when he went away. "He's only wasting time," said the boy. "We may keep the old woman alive till tomorrow," said Herrick. Sidney shook his head. "She will die before sunset," he said. Out of sheer perversity, Dr. Jim wanted to thwart this prophecy. He saw that bad as Petronella was, she could be kept alive by stimulants, and this he intended to do, if only to baffle this extraordinary boy. For once in a way he wished to prove Sidney in the wrong. The boy perhaps guessed his intentions, for he smiled again, and then said abruptly that he was going back to Saxham. "Will you tell them what has happened?" asked Herrick. "No," replied Sidney after a pause. "I'm not fond of talking. You can tell them if you like." "Very good," said Dr. Jim coolly. "Then you ask Ida, Frank, and Bess to be at 'The Pines' about 5 o'clock. I shall return by that time, and then everything can be explained. Thank heaven we know the truth at last. It is about time that the matter came to an end. Will you be at 'The Pines' also?" "I am going to have a long sleep," said Sidney. "I feel very tired." He turned away with a nod, and Herrick stared after him. Jim was a doctor of the most advanced school. He had studied much, he was quick in seeing things, and on the whole prided himself on his knowledge. But he could make nothing of Sidney, the boy, and his ways were beyond him altogether. Sidney would have baffled a committee of doctors. Herrick searched for a nurse and found one speedily, for he knew where to go. He brought her back to the house and set her to heat some soup. Then he gave various directions, sent out for certain medicine, and did what he could to revive the strength of the old woman. Bridge allowed Petronella to have the bedroom to herself, but he kept 2 policemen in the house and got out his warrant. Nothing was known in the town about the matter, as Bridge wished to wait until all was in order before telling the public. He foresaw the glory would accrue to him by the story he intended to tell. He had resolved to give Sidney and Herrick no more credit than he could help. Dr. Jim guessed as much when he heard Bridge talking, but he was rather pleased than otherwise. He did not want this latest freak of the uncanny changeling to be talked about. Besides, Bridge amused him. He was so very human in his love of praise. His philanthropic work being ended, Herrick walked back to Saxham. He reached the Pines some time after 5, and already found the assembled party impatiently expecting his arrival. Sidney, it appeared, had just said sufficient to pique the curiosity of his family. He hinted that some untoward event had occurred with which Herrick was connected, but refused to say what it was. Then he had retired to bed in full daylight, and announced that he was going to sleep for 24 hours. What was to be done with such a boy? "He grows more eccentric every day," sighed Ida. Stephen laughed. "Oh, his eccentricities are harmless enough. That is, if—" Here he caught Herrick's eyes and hesitated. He did not know but what Sidney might have confessed the crime of which Frisco had accused him. "Oh, that's all right," said Jim cheerily. "What is?" asked Bess, wondering at the sudden relief expressed on Stephen's face. "Jim, you have something to tell us?" "Yes, something very important about the murder." "The murder of Carr?" cried Frank, astonished. "Oh, I thought that was done with long ago." "On the contrary," said Dr. Jim, "I have been working at it all these months, trying to learn the truth. Stephen and Bess have been helping me." "Well," said Ida, looking from her lover to the doctor, "I do call it mean. I should have been told." "It would only have worried you, dear," said the Squire. "But what is the difficulty?" cried Frank, puzzled. "Frisco killed the Colonel. There was no secret about that." "Frisco did not kill Carr," said Herrick. "The jury were wrong. So were we all. It was Petronella who shot the man." Stephen jumped up, as Bess uttered a cry of amazement. "Petronella!" he stammered. "Thank God Sidney did not do it." "Sidney!" cried Bess and Ida in a breath. Herrick hurriedly explained. "Frisco accused Sidney because he was in the house at the time of the murder. That was when you were looking for him, Bess. Do you remember?" "I should think so," she cried. "No wonder I could not find him. But Petronella! Was the pistol hers and the silver bullet?" "What are you talking about, Bess dear?" "Let me explain," said Dr. Jim, before Bess could answer Ida. "It is a long story, and I think you will find it interesting." And then Herrick told the whole complicated case from the time he and Joyce found the dead body of Colonel Carr in the tower which now no longer existed. He was frequently interrupted with exclamations of horror from Ida, and a rage from Frank. When he ended, the latter jumped up. "If I meet that little wretch Joyce again," said Frank, "I'll break every bone in his body. The idea of trying to mix up Bess in the matter." "He has received a worse punishment than a thrashing," said Stephen. "I think you can leave him to the punishment of destiny, Frank." A babel of voices ensued. Every one was talking at once, and for fully an hour they discussed the case in all its bearings. "I suppose Frisco will be released now," said Bess triumphantly. "I knew that he was innocent. I said so all along." "All the same he's a bad lot," remarked Herrick. "The less we have to do with him the better." "I don't think he'll come down here again in a hurry," said Marsh Carr thankfully, "and Santiago has sailed for Mexico. Thus we are rid of the whole gang. Hullo! What's that?" It was a violent ringing at the door, and Herrick started to his feet, looking perturbed. "I hope nothing is wrong," he said. "I am getting so nervous with all this, that I am always expecting the worst of tidings." As he spoke, the footman ushered in Inspector Bridge in a state of excitement. The man could hardly speak, and was scarlet in the face with suppressed rage and alarm. "I beg your pardon," he said to the company, "but this woman Petronella—" "What is the matter?" asked Dr. Jim. "She is dead." All looked at one another. "And before sunset," remarked Herrick, thinking of Sidney. "How did it happen, Bridge?" "She had a bottle of chloral under her pillow, and while the nurse's back was turned she drank it. I was called too late. She is as dead as a doornail, and has spoiled a most beautiful case." Leaving the others to discuss the matter with Bridge, Herrick hastily excused himself. He ran across the Biffstead and up into Sidney's bedroom. The boy was sleeping quietly, but Dr. Jim woke him promptly. "I say," he cried, shaking the boy's shoulder, "she is dead." "Petronella," said Sidney drowsily. "I know she is. I said she would die before sunset." "You told her to take that chloral?" "No," said Sidney in a sleepy manner. "She wanted to take it before she confessed, but I stopped her. But she was bound to die. I said she might get out of the world more easily if she took it. I daresay she died quietly in a sleep." "You have behaved shamefully," cried Herrick wrathfully. "No, she was bound to die in any case. Why should she not die as she pleased? Go away, Dr. Jim, I want to sleep," and Sidney closed his eyes. Herrick, in face of this calmness, was helpless, so he departed. The boy had baffled him to the very end. Chapter 27. In this way the trouble left as a legacy by the wicked Colonel came to an end. Frisco was duly tried, and on the confession of Petronella he was acquitted. A very meagre report of the proceedings appeared in the newspapers. In taking down the confession, Herrick had not inserted the fact of Mrs. Marsh's connection with the matter. Frisco said nothing to his counsel about the 3 shots fired after the Colonel was dead. Therefore, the name of Stephen's stepmother was spared the disgrace of her mad, impulsive act. For obvious reasons, the most interesting part of the case was left untold, and the public never knew the complications that had ensued in searching for the assassin. Frisco was tried briefly, was acquitted, and when set free he disappeared. Where he went no one knew, and no one cared. By the advice of Dr. Jim, Stephen paid the Belcher and Kidd the reward that he had promised for the capture of Frisco. Herrick was afraid that if it was not paid, that the two might search into the matter more particularly than would be agreeable to the feelings of Marsh Carr. Stephen saw this danger himself, and gladly sent a check for the money. Belcher and Kidd will get no more business from Dr. Herrick. "And I hope I never come in connection with detective business again," said Herrick earnestly. "It is all very well to read about, but in real life it is not so pleasant. However, we have done with it all." Certainly he was done with the case, but not entirely with Frisco. One day the ex-sailor arrived at Saxham and asked to see Mr. Marsh Carr. At the time Stephen was indoors, and luckily for him, Dr. Herrick had not gone out. When the name of Frisco was given, the two looked at one another in surprise. They had hoped never to hear it again. "Shall I see him, Jim?" asked Stephen doubtfully. "Certainly I shall see him also," replied Herrick. "He can have come here for no good purpose. But I would rather have him as an open enemy than striking in the dark." The consequence of this speech was that Frisco was shown into the library. He was glad to see Marsh Carr, and visibly annoyed to find that the doctor was present. "My business is private," said Frisco. "You must tell it to me in the presence of Dr. Herrick," said Stephen, scenting trouble. "I do nothing without his advice." "Worse luck," growled Frisco, and sat down with a scowl. Herrick laughed. "You do not seem pleased that you have escaped the gallows, Frisco," he said. "Or perhaps you are sorry the criminal did not turn out to be Sidney Endicott." "I don't care a fig who it was, so long as it wasn't me," replied the ex-sailor. Fancy Carr being shot by an old hag after going through all the dangers he did. Always thought he'd have a mean end." "This is beside the point," said Stephen. "As I suppose you did not come here to criticize my uncle, you had better tell me your business." "It's not pleasant business," said Frisco coolly. "So I should expect, seeing that you have come about it," said the Squire. "However, I shall be pleased to hear what it is." Frisco took a paper out of his pocket. "I don't think you will," he said. "I have here, Mr. Marsh Carr, the last will of the Colonel." Stephen started to his feet and turned pale. Herrick, who had been listening intently, struck in. "I suppose it leaves all the money to you, Mr. Joyce Frisco?" "No," growled Frisco, "and you needn't, Señor. It's a good will for you if it's true what Robin says." "And what does Robin say?" "That you are to marry Miss Bess." "That is perfectly true," replied Herrick coolly, "but I do not see what she has to do with your business." "You will soon, Dr. Herrick. The money is left to her." "What?" cried Stephen loudly. "Carr has left his money to Bess?" "You bet. Here's the will," and Frisco threw it across the table. "He said she was the only man amongst the lot of you. See how honest I am, Herrick. I want to make you a rich man, 'cause you stood by me in trouble. I never forget a pal, not me." Meantime Stephen and Jim were looking over the paper. "Why," cried Herrick, bursting into a laugh, "it's not worth the paper it's written on. Here is the Colonel's signature, but there are no witnesses." "Ah, you see that, do you?" said Frisco with a chuckle. "That's so. But I tell you that if my milksop had married the girl, my fool son Robin I mean, there would have been witnesses, and the will would have been proved in law." "I dare say," said Stephen, who sat down again with a recovered colour. "Well, even if this will had have been genuine, I should not have minded. There is no one I would give the money to sooner than Dr. Herrick." "Stuff and nonsense!" cried Jim, although he reddened with pleasure at this tribute of friendship. "As if I or Bess would have taken a penny of it. Oh, I see what your game was, Frisco. You wanted Robin to marry Bess, and then you would have got witnesses to this will, and taken the money from Stephen. Is that so?" "That is so," rejoined Frisco, leaning back. "As the fool could not get the girl, I tried the other plan of stopping Marsh going to the vault. That failed because of you, Dr. Herrick. If it had not been for you, I'd have had that money." "You confess your villainies very coolly," said Marsh Carr sharply. "Do you know that I can lay you by the heels for that assault?" "Oh no, you can't. 'Twas Santiago struck you. You can't prove that I had anything to do with it. And," said Frisco impudently, "you would not if you could. Remember, I held my tongue about." "Yes, yes," said Stephen hastily. "It was good of you to say nothing about my unhappy mother. I am so far indebted to you." "Ah, that's just what I've come about." "What do you mean?" asked Jim sharply. "Lord, Doc, you ain't half sharp enough. I want the Squire here to give me £1,000 to start afresh. I and Robin are going back to the States, and we want something to begin life on." "That's only fair," put in Stephen eagerly. "I am—" "Wait a bit," said Jim. "Let us hear on what grounds Frisco asks you to do this." Frisco was quite ready to show grounds. "Well, in the first place, I held my tongue about Mrs. Marsh firing at the dead body." "Yes, I owe you something for that," said Stephen, flushing and wincing. "In the second," said Frisco, raising his finger, "I brought you that will unwitnessed so that you can still keep the money. If Robin had got the girl, I shouldn't have done that. My name is one witness, and Santiago has another, and where would you be?" "Santiago was never in this house," said Herrick, "and a will has to be signed when the testator and the witnesses are together." "Oh, I'd have arranged all that. My own signature you could not dispute, as I was Carr's right hand man. I'd have paid Santiago half a year's income to sign. He'd have done it like a shot, and the will would have stood any test then." "That is true enough," said Herrick reflectively. "So long as the Colonel's signature was right, the rest was easy. Where did you get this will?" "It was on his table. He must have been fooling with it when the old woman Petronella shot him. It was about this will that Mrs. Marsh made such a fuss, only she thought the money was to be left to me." "Ah, you let that out yourself?" "Being drunk," said Frisco with a laugh. "Well, I took away the will, and afterwards thought to use it by marrying Robin to Bess Endicott. But you see, Mr. Marsh," he added, turning to Stephen, "I did not have the witnesses' names put, so you keep the money instead of handing it over to Miss Bess." "Whether he had done so or not," cried Dr. Jim hotly, "Bess would not have taken it. The money is rightfully Stephen's." "Ah, that brings me to the third point," said Frisco unmoved. "I worked for that money. I went through hot and cold and danger to get it. Half of it should have been mine, but Carr had the whip hand on me, so I'm out of it. Now, gentlemen, I know where that cash is. If you will give me 1,000 to fit out an expedition, we'll cry quits. I and Robin are going to get more treasure. Carr didn't take away the lot." "But remember that the Indians are warned," said Herrick. "They have very likely removed the rest of the jewels." "That's what I've got to find out," said Frisco, "and Robin is coming along with me to be made a man of. Well, these 3 points, Mr. Marsh, are clear enough. I ought to have half the money, but as you have the upper hand, I ask £1,000 as my right." "I certainly think you are entitled to that much," said Stephen. "What do you say, Herrick?" "I'm with you, Steve. Give him the money." Frisco chuckled while Stephen wrote out a check for the amount. When the ex-sailor placed it in his pocket, he stood up to go. "Well, gentlemen," he said, with some sort of emotion, "I thank you for this treatment. You are both white men. I have behaved badly, but this makes all square. I can tell you one thing, Mr. Marsh, that you will have no further trouble about the money. Even if the Indians knew, they would do nothing to you now that Carr has gone. As to the plan, I dare say his body by this time is, well, no matter. I'll go out of your life, gentlemen, so does Robin, to be made a man of. There remains Santiago. He won't trouble you. I'm going to shoot him when I drop across him in Mexico. You can do what you like there, Frisco. I dare say another crime won't matter much to you." "It wouldn't be a crime, but an act of justice. He played me a dirty trick, Dr. Herrick. However, I'm off. You won't shake hands, so I don't offer." "So long, gentlemen both," said Frisco, walking towards the door, "and may you live long and be happy. As to that devil Carr," Frisco spat and then departed. They never saw him again. A year later, information came through a newspaper stating the fate of an expedition that had gone into the interior of Peru. The Indians of the Cordilleras had attacked the camp, and the 3 white men who led the expedition were killed. Their names were Joyce, alias Frisco, his son Robin, and a Mexican called Santiago. "Poor Robin," said Herrick, when he read this to his wife. "He was a mean little scoundrel, but I'm sorry that he came to such an end. As to Santiago, Frisco must have made it up with him and taken him to look after the treasure. Well, the whole 3 are dead. Let us forget them." But this is anticipating. On the evening of the day when Frisco appeared, Stephen announced to the assembled Biffs that Dr. Herrick intended to accept half the income of the wicked Colonel with the permission of Bess. Jim was on his feet at once. "Come," he cried, very red, "I intend to do nothing of the sort. What rubbish you are talking, Steve." "I only ask Bess to read this paper," said Stephen, and gave Bess the incomplete will. "Ah, true," replied Herrick. "It is only fair that she should decide for herself. But I'll have no part in the matter." "The Colonel's going to leave his money to me," said Bess. "Well, I never heard such nonsense, Stephen. As if I would take a penny from you or Ida." "I told you so," cried Dr. Jim triumphantly. "I knew Bess would think the same as I. Hurrah, Bess, kiss me." "Is this a proper will, Steve?" asked Ida, looking at the paper. "No, Frisco brought it here to-day to cause trouble. But as you see there are no witnesses, so it is not valid." "And yet you want to offer me half the money?" "Take it, Bess," cried Ida. "I am sure Stephen and I can live well on 4,000 a year." "I won't," said Bess. "These were the Colonel's intentions. Very kind, I'm sure. But even if the will were legal, I should not accept. Jim, am I not right?" "Perfectly right, darling. You and I will make our own way." "It's all nonsense," said Stephen. "You must take some money. It is only fair that the Colonel's intentions should be respected in some way." There was a great deal of argument. Finally Bess and Dr. Herrick agreed to take 1,000 a year for life. "There," said Ida, kissing her sister. "I hope that is all right." "And now Jim will go away," said Stephen gloomily. "Not until the year's end, and until the money is firmly in your possession," was the reply of the doctor. "Remember, you have some months' visits to pay to the vault. Even though Frisco is gone, we must carry out the will." "And at the end of the year?" "I'll establish myself in practice somewhere," said Dr. Herrick. "Perhaps in Beorminster, so as to be near you. Bess can then go on writing for the Weekly Chronicle." "Indeed I shall write a novel," cried Bess. "I want a London fame." And so it was settled. For a year Herrick remained at the Pines with the Squire. Then there was a double wedding. Ida and Stephen came back to live in the wicked Colonel's house, and Dr. Herrick and his bride established himself in a comfortable mansion in Beorminster. He became immensely popular, and also having married into a county family, he was much sought after by the county invalids. Frank and Sidney were left at Biffstead, and Flo came home to keep house for them. The Reverend Pentland Corn gave up his charge of the parish, and went out to the East as a missionary. No one could understand the reason for this folly, as they called it, save Herrick. He understood only too well, and his was the last hand Pentland Corn clasped when he left England for India. His place was taken by a young and amiable rector, who will probably marry Flo Endicott. Then Frank will have to keep house himself, or marry in self-defense. As to Sidney the queer boy, Herrick took the young gentleman in hand and tried to make him a healthy man. He made him ride, shoot, swim, and indulge in all manner of outdoor sports. At first Sidney rebelled, but as he was really fond of Herrick, he began to take kindly to the regime. The consequence was he became more of a boy in a few months, and actually began to eat meat. Herrick watched over him with the greatest care, and gradually Sidney lost his unpleasant faculty of seeing things. He went to college, and there he now is becoming rapidly more of a normal person. Once he met with a theosophist who told him after hearing his story that he had sunk the spirit in the flesh, and blamed Herrick severely. In fact, this gentleman took a journey to Saxham to see and expostulate with Herrick on the wickedness of debasing the psychic gifts of the boy. "I would rather see him a healthy man," said the doctor impatiently. "In what you say there may be a good deal, but the boy is now in better health and easier to live with." "Ah, you do not deserve to have such a person in the family," said the theosophist. "But your work will not endure forever. You have made Mr. Endicott eat meat and materialized him, but in a few years he will recover his gift. It will be stronger than ever." "Then I hope he won't come here," said Herrick. "I have every respect for persons so gifted, but I don't like them. To have one at your elbow who sees into the future and foretells death, and is always seeing creatures of the air, is horrible." "You are a sceptic, Dr. Herrick." "No, I think there are many things of which we know nothing. I mean in regard to what we talk about. But for my part, I want to do my duty in this life, and leave all these occult things to people who like them. I should like my brother-in-law to act likewise. However, he is in good health now, and I should be sorry to see him relapse into the state he was when I first met him." Thereupon the theosophist sighed and departed. All the same, he is keeping a watch over Sidney, and should the boy again develop the clairvoyant faculty, he will be made better use of by those who understand. And then a happy day came, when in Stephen's arms was placed a boy. Bess Herrick placed him therein. "Do you know who this is?" she asked. "My son and heir," replied Stephen, bending over the infant. "What else, or who else should he be?" The very first really innocent creature who has been in this house for close upon a century." "That is complimentary to us all, Bess," said her husband, who had entered the room. "But what if he is?" Bess looked solemn. "I think he is the guardian angel of Ida and Steve to keep away the evil spirit of Colonel Carr." "Come now, Bess, you are not like Sidney. You have not seen—" "I have seen nothing, Jim. But the village people are already making a legend about the wicked Colonel. They say he walks. I hope, now that this innocent child is here, that they will leave off inventing such horrid things. I don't want the Pines to have the reputation of being haunted. And you know how stories grow, Jim." "I know this," replied Dr. Herrick, "that Carr was murdered in a room which has vanished into thin air. If his ghost walks anywhere, it must be in the pine wood. There's no call for him to haunt this place." Someone repeated this saying of Herrick's, and what he had said in jest was spoken of in earnest. In a few months it was commonly reported that the wicked Colonel had been seen in the pine wood, surrounded with a red glow, significant of the habitation of his spirit, for its sins dwelt in. In vain more sensible people laughed at this tale. It came to be firmly believed in, and it was said that when any misfortune was about to befall the Marshcar family, that the shade of the Colonel appeared. "It is the penalty of greatness," said Dr. Jim to Stephen. "A county family is not really respectable until it has its private ghost." And in this way wicked Colonel Carr became a tradition. End of The Silver Bullet by Fergus Hume.